Chapter 2869. Apex Gathering Zero Wing Residence, Top Floor Reception Room. As the primary guild residence of a main city, Zero Wings Guild Hall was a 30-story tall building almost 200 meters high. One had an unobstructed view of the entire Zero Wing City if one looked out the top floor reception room's windows. Since Zero Wing City was located in a snowland and backed by the endless sea, the view here was unique for players who often operated around NPC cities surrounded by greenery. Unfortunately, none of the dozen or so people currently seated in the reception room showed any interest in admiring this beautiful scenery. Instead, they focused on sizing up each other. Zero Wing City has attracted a lot of bigwigs. Yuan Tianxin was a little shocked as he observed the room's occupants. Mythology's Grand Elder Situ Qing Tian, Netherworld Empire's Grand Elder Nether King Relos, and even the Solar Temple's honorary Elder Qiang Tianhe. It seems these guilds are serious this time. 3 of the 5 great super guilds had sent representatives to Zero Wing City. Moreover, these representatives were all key figures in their respective guilds' management, individuals fully capable of making decisions on behalf of their respective guilds. Usually, meeting even one of these individuals would be challenging. Yet, 3 of them had gathered in Zero Wing City. However, Yuan Tianxin's surprise didn't last too long. After all, Zero Wing had created too huge a scene this time. The 5 great super guilds could no longer ignore it. At this stage of the game, there was probably no guild uninterested in a teleportation array that could facilitate unrestricted travel between the 2 main continents. The ongoing War of Worlds only served to make this intercontinental teleportation array even more precious. If not for another important matter occupying the Secret Pavilion's guild leader, Yuan Tianxin wouldn't be the one sitting in this room, representing the Secret Pavilion. Netherworld Empire sure moved fast. It has been active only on the Western continent all this time, yet it sent an old guy like the Nether King here, Matt of Mythology said, surprise appearing in his eyes as he looked at a bald old man in a white robe. It hasn't been long since I last met him, yet this old guy's strength has already improved so much. The mana he's radiating has nearly doubled in density. I also see 2 new pieces of equipment on him. That's normal. He wouldn't have given Odin so much trouble if he hasn't made any significant improvements after all this time. Situ Qing Tian, the white-haired old man seated beside Matt, said calmly. He then glanced at the masked young man standing behind Relos and continued, that masked kid behind Nether King, though, is quite something. Although I can't say for certain, he shouldn't be any weaker than Prosciutto. Surprised by Situ Qing Tian's assessment, Matt looked toward the masked youth and asked, is he that strong? The silver ghost Prosciutto was already the strongest among Mythology's younger generation. Not only did he possess excellent equipment, but his mana body had even exceeded the 110% completion rate already. Now, only a handful of people within the guild could defeat him. After hearing Situ Qing Tian's assessment, Cold Shadow, who sat on the elderly man's other side, also looked at the masked youth in surprise. Situ Qing Tian had instructed countless students, and his insight was many times superior to that of youngsters like Matt and herself. Since Situ Qing Tian had given the masked youth such an evaluation, the youth definitely couldn't be underestimated. It's not just that masked kid. The long-haired kid sitting beside Qiang Tianhe isn't any weaker, either, Situ Qing Tian said, smiling as he looked at the long-haired, male youth seated some distance away from him. I have to say that times have changed. He looks to be around 26 or 27 years old, yet he has already reached the peak of the domain realm's 2nd step. It's been 3 decades since I last saw such talent. When Situ Qing Tian finished speaking, Cold Shadow was surprised again. Even now, she was barely touching the fringes of the domain realm's 2nd step, and it would still take a lot of time and effort for her to reach it, let alone climb to the peak of the 2nd step. Experts capable of reaching this step were as rare as a phoenix's feather in the virtual gaming industry. If such an expert could take one more step forward, they would become an existence standing at the very apex of God's domain. Situ Qing Tian did not lower his voice when speaking. He also didn't talk through a private channel. Hence, every Tier 4 expert in the reception room heard his words loud and clear. BRO0/B. All of the youths present, including Purple Jade and Netherworld Empire's masked youth, turned reflexively to look at the long-haired youth carrying the blood-red greatsword, their eyes full of fighting spirit. Situ Qingtian, you're still the same gossipy bastard as before, Qiang Tianhe said, glaring at Situ Qing Tian. While our kid has indeed made a breakthrough recently, do you think I can't see through that young lass beside you? If I'm not mistaken, She has at least 4 fragmented legendary items on her, right? As soon as Qiang Tianhe finished speaking, everyone's head snapped toward Cold Shadow. The masked youth and the long-haired youth in particular looked at her with fiery gazes. Nowadays, epic weapons and equipment were a lot more common in God's domain. Fragmented legendary items, on the other hand, were still incredibly rare even for the various superpowers. Even in Netherworld Empire and Solar Temple, less than 30% of their Tier 4 experts had even 1 fragmented legendary item, while their Grand Elders would be fortunate to have 1 or 2 fragmented legendary items. Yet, Qiang Tianhe had revealed that Cold Shadow owned at least 4 fragmented legendary items. How could they not envy her? After reaching their level, every fragmented legendary item could provide them with significant improvements. The total improvement 4 fragmented legendary items could provide would be massive. This old bastard. Cold Shadow glared at Qiang Tianhe. A display of talent would, at most, make others envious. However, weapons and equipment were a different story. Unlike talent, others could snatch these items. With her current strength, she wouldn't stand a chance if 2 or more of the people present attacked her. After all, every person in the room was a bona fide monster. Looking at Cold Shadow, Qiang Tianhe smiled and asked, "What is it? Do you wish to take action, young lass?" Qiang Tianhe. Glaring at Qiang Tianhe coldly, Situ Qingtian threatened, "Do you think we won't dare make a move?" Immediately, the atmosphere in the room solidified, an indescribable sense of coldness spreading throughout the room. At this development, the members of Mythology and Solar Temple instinctively gripped their weapons. If an ordinary Tier 4 expert were to stand in this heavy atmosphere, they would most likely break out in a cold sweat and flee the scene immediately. What rotten luck! Just what are these people trying to do? Yuan Tixin grew a little nervous as he looked at the members of the 2 super guilds. Mythologies and Solar Temple's Tier 4 experts were far from ordinary. This was especially true for Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe. A fight between them would be a calamity. The others in the room might even become collateral damage if things got too out of hand. To make matters worse, Netherworld Empire's members also showed signs of restlessness. Evidently, if Mythology and Solar Temple fought, Netherworld Empire wouldn't mind joining in the fray. Just as a fight was about to ensue, the woman standing by the room's door all this time suddenly stepped forward. She was none other than Fire Dance. At this time, not only was Fire Dance at level 155 already, but the quality of the mana she radiated was also much more powerful than when she first entered the statue room. Looking at the members of Mythology and Solar Temple, Fire Dance warned, "Everyone. This is Zero Wing's territory. Fighting is forbidden here. I ask you to show Zero Wing some respect." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. You show Zero Wing respect? Glancing at Fire Dance, Qiang Tianhe said nonchalantly, "Sure. As long as you can get Situ to shut up, I won't have any problems." Not one to fall behind, Situ Qingtian looked at Fire Dance and said, "Young lady, this old man isn't trying to disrespect Zero Wing, but Qiang Tianhe has gone too far. So long as you can get that old ghost to apologize to us, we won't take any direct action." The 2 old men's rejoinders rendered Yuan Tixin and Purple Jade speechless. Fire Dance was indeed powerful, but she was still slightly weaker than the 2 old men. At most, she could contend against the younger generation of Mythology and Solar Temple. Hence, it was impossible for her to silence the 2 guilds all by herself. Moreover, based on the words spoken by Qiang Tianhe and Situ Qingtian, the 2 of them were clearly trying to make a show of power to Zero Wing. If Fire Dance failed to deal with this situation appropriately, she would make a fool of herself and Zero Wing. However, without any hesitation, Fire Dance calmly told the 2 old men, "If you 2 refuse to give up, then please leave Zero Wing City. Zero Wing does not welcome such guests." Chapter 2870. Shifeng Sword. Fire Dance's words resounded like thunder in the reception room, causing silence to descend on the room momentarily. Yuan Tixin and Purple Jade also stared at Fire Dance reflexively. Has she lost her mind? Both Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe were big shots who spoke and acted on behalf of their respective guilds. The 2 had behaved rudely to show off their power and gain an advantage in their upcoming negotiations with Zero Wing, but Fire Dance's words cornered them. They couldn't back down without harming their reputation. If these 2 old men got angry for real, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Zero Wing City had many Tier 4 players and NPCs defending it, If the two old men were intent on making a ruckus, it would take a long time for the city to suppress them. They might even escape capture. After all, this wasn't the first time they had done such a thing. Most importantly, the two of them represented mythology and solar temple, two of the 5 great super guilds. Moreover, compared to the other 3, these 2 super guilds held far greater influence on the eastern continent. The 2 guilds might currently be incapable of retaliating against Zero Wing, but as holders of reserved seats for God's Domain's 12 great guilds, they could ruin the Twin Towers Kingdom and Star Moon Kingdom with just a word. Now that the Outer World's forces were rapidly expanding their influence, the NPC kingdoms and empires had limited combat power to spare. As a result, the united army these countries formed couldn't protect every kingdom on the continent. With the resumption of the war imminent, if Mythology and Solar Temple requested the NPC forces not to defend the Twin Towers Kingdom and Star Moon Kingdom, the 2 kingdoms would face swift destruction. Without the support of these 2 kingdoms, even if Zero Wing had Zero Wing City and the ability to teleport between the 2 continents, its income would still plummet. This was because most of the independent players and guild players visiting Zero Wing City could reach the city only via Sky Spring City's teleportation hall. It wasn't possible to teleport to Zero Wing City from other NPC cities. If Sky Spring City disappeared, these players would naturally lose the means to teleport to Zero Wing City. Meanwhile, Zero Wing couldn't garrison any other NPC city at this time. The special rights Zero Wing received from the War God's Temple as a reward from the reserve seat competition were a one-time privilege. If Zero Wing wished to garrison another NPC city, it would have to become a reserve for God's Domain's 12 great guilds. However, this wasn't possible right now. This was also precisely the reason Mythology, a guild that had been suppressing Zero Wing all this time, dared to come to Zero Wing's doorsteps and negotiate for partnership. The next moment, Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe turned to Fire Dance, a hint of coldness and playfulness in their eyes. Little girl, we traveled a long distance to come to negotiate a partnership with Zero Wing. Is this how Zero Wing treats its guests? Situ Qingtian asked as he visually inspected Fire Dance. Revealing a faint smile, he continued, if Zero Wing doesn't wish to partner with Mythology, Mythology will naturally find it unfortunate and frustrating. However, if Zero Wing comes across difficulties in the future, don't blame Mythology for not helping. Situ's words might not sound nice, but they are logical. Qiang Tianhe also looked at Fire Dance and said in a deep voice, we came here with kind intentions. Now that the Outer World's forces have invaded the Eastern continent, only by cooperating will we be able to stop their advance. If we separate on bad terms here, the Twin Towers Kingdom and Star Moon Kingdom will suffer. When Fire Dance heard the 2 elderly men's words, her complexion sank. She never expected the 2 of them to suddenly stand on the same side and work together to pressure Zero Wing. Seeing Fire Dance's grim expression, Situ Qingtian chuckled and said, I know you have your own difficulties, young lady. I'm sure you just made an unintentional mistake just now. Your words represent only your thoughts, right? At this time, Situ Qingtian did not dare to truly offend Zero Wing. After all, the benefits of Zero Wing City were too great to pass on. However, he still had to teach Fire Dance a lesson and let her know that she couldn't provoke just anyone in God's domain. Qiang Tianhe, who remained seated, nodded and chimed in, that's right. There are some things you can't say arbitrarily, little girl. Elders like us might be able to ignore such a transgression, but if it were anyone else, your words would have severe consequences. Nether King Relos shook his head and sighed at the situation. Fire Dance was too young. Because of her inexperience, she had failed to notice that Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe had aimed for such an outcome right from the very beginning. They had deliberately made a commotion in the reception room in the hopes of hooking Fire Dance. Now that she had taken action on Zero Wing's behalf, she was bound to suffer humiliation. Driving away Mythology's and Solar Temple's members wouldn't be possible unless Zero Wing was willing to abandon the profits of the Twin Towers Kingdom and Star Moon Kingdom. Just when Fire Dance was at a loss as to what to say, the doors to the reception room suddenly opened. A tall figure then entered, looked at Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe, and demanded coldly, do you old fools think Zero Wing's main force commander cannot represent Zero Wing? Or do you think Zero Wing is a pushover? I can tell you now that Fire Dance's previous words represent my will. You may leave now. Shi Feng did not speak loudly, but a bone-chilling cold enveloped the entire room at his words. Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe, in particular, were dumbfounded. Even Relos, who had been a spectator all this time, was stunned. He never thought that Xueqi would chase off mythology and solar temple without any negotiations. Guild leader Black Flame, aren't you going a little too far? Situ Qingtian asked in a cold voice. Our two guilds have come in sincerity. Are you going to abandon the Twin Towers Kingdom and Star Moon Kingdom just because of a little girl's few words? At this time, Qiang Tianhe interjected hurriedly. Guild leader Black Flame, must you take things so seriously? We were merely making a joke. Abandonment is a joke? Looking at the two elderly men before him, Xueqi sneered. You two think too highly of yourselves. I'll give you 5 seconds to leave. Otherwise, I'll send you back myself. Xueqi's words shocked everyone present once more. Is he really going to do that? When Yuan Tiexin looked at Xueqi, he felt that Xueqi was even crazier than Fire Dance. Fire Dance had merely acted to preserve Zero Wing's reputation. However, Xueqi was blatantly declaring war on mythology and Solar Temple. After this declaration, even if Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe previously wanted to pursue negotiations for a partnership, they wouldn't do so anymore. Good. Very good. Situ Qingtian suddenly smiled as he looked at Xueqi. This old man admires your will to make an enemy out of mythology and abandon 2 kingdoms. However, I'm curious to see how you plan on sending this old man back. After saying so, Situ Qingtian stood up and unsheathed the dark greatsword slung on his back. Simultaneously, not only did his body radiate a frightening aura, but the mana surrounding him also took on a near-liquid form, sparkling as it circled his silvery gray armor. Sensing the pressure he radiated, Fire Dance and the other youngsters in the room subconsciously took a step back. As expected of this old bastard, his mana body has broken through the 115% threshold. He can probably hold his own against even a superior mythic monster of the same level now. Relos was astonished when he sensed Situ Qingtian's unparalleled aura. Everyone has been saying that you are God's domain's strongest, guild leader Black Flame. This old man has been curious about the validity of this rumor for a long time now. After Situ Qingtian unleashed his aura, Qiang Tianhe, who sat nearby, also stood up and raised a crimson staff. The white robe he wore instantly transformed into a robe of flames, making it seem as if the god of fire had just descended to the mortal world. The aura he radiated was not the slightest bit inferior to Situ Qingtian's, and his level had even surpassed Situ Qingtian by 1, at level 154 already. Amazing. So, these are the apex combatants of these 2 super guilds. Yuan Tiexin was astounded as he looked at Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe. Under normal circumstances, the average Tier 4 expert would have difficulty fleeing from a superior mythic monster of the same level, let alone fighting one. Yet, these 2 elderly men now radiated an aura rivaling that of a superior mythic monster of the same level. Their combat power ranked at the very top of God's domain at this stage of the game. Now, even a dozen Tier 4 experts working together would most likely have difficulty suppressing Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe. Not to mention, the two's combat standards were incredibly close to reaching the beyond domain realm. Let's see how you recover from this now, Black Flame. Cold Shadow, who now stood at a side, grew excited when she saw that Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe intended to take action. She might not know precisely how powerful Qiang Tianhe was, but she knew how powerful Situ Qingtian was. Moreover, it had been a long time since she had seen Situ Qingtian take action. With the 2 of them working together, even a monster like Xueqi would have difficulty defeating them within a short period. A fight between Xueqi, dubbed God's domain's strongest expert, and 2 legendary figures in the virtual gaming industry deserve to be called an apex battle in God's domain. If both sides fought for a sufficiently long time, she might gain enough insight to improve her combat standards further. Cold Shadow wasn't the only person with such thoughts. Purple Jade, Netherworld Empire's masked youth, and Solar Temple's long-haired youth were similarly curious to see how this fight would play out. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Eub, since you 2 want me to send you back, I'll grant you your wish. After glancing at the 2 elderly men, Xueqi stopped concealing his aura and mana. Immediately, the space within the room froze, a stifling pressure enveloping everyone. Even Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe subconsciously stumbled 2 steps back, their eyes filled with fear and confusion as they gaped at Xueqi. Tier 5? The same question simultaneously ran through the minds of the 2 elderly men. However, before they could respond to the situation, Xueqi suddenly appeared before them, his movement so fast that it seemed as if he had split into 2. Xueqi then stabbed their hearts with his sword. Afterward, Xueqi returned to one entity, now standing quietly by the window wall behind the two elderly men. And before anyone realized what had happened, the sword in his hand was already back in its sheath, as if Xueqi had never drawn it. Meanwhile, Situ Qingtian's and Qiang Tianhe's HPs, which exceeded 10 million, had zeroed out by the time everyone realized what was going on. The two's bodies then collapsed to the ground, neither managing to react from start to finish. Chapter 2871. Tier 5? They're dead. The spectators in the room were stunned to see Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe collapsing to the floor, their minds failing to process the situation. Cold Shadow and the long-haired youth from Solar Temple, in particular, appeared petrified, their bodies remaining utterly motionless as they stared at the two sprawled corpses. How is this possible? The instructor failed to endure even a single hit? Compared to everyone else present, Cold Shadow and the long-haired youth had a much better understanding of Situ Qingtian's and Qiang Tianhe's strengths. Setting aside the fact that the two elderly men had combat standards close to the beyond domain realm, just their basic attributes and mana bodies were more than enough for them to combat superior mythic monsters of the same level. Despite being so monstrously powerful, Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe had failed to mount even the slightest bit of resistance to Xueqi before dying. This was simply unbelievable. Yuan Tianxin and Purple Jade were similarly astonished at the situation, their minds unable to recover from the shock even after a long time. They had expected a heaven-defying battle and even felt that Xueqi had been unwise to provoke Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe. After all, if these two superior mythic equivalents went all out, destroying Zero Wing's residence wouldn't be impossible for them. Even if Xueqi eventually succeeded in killing them, Zero Wing would still have to pay a significant price. Yet now. However, unlike everyone else present, Nether King Relos's attention wasn't on Situ Qingtian's and Qiang Tianhe's corpses. Instead, he stared at Xueqi's figure standing calmly by the window wall, his eyes wide with fear and horror. A Tier 5 Sword Saint? Although it was only an instant, Relos had felt unprecedented fear overwhelming his body when Xueqi executed his attack. That spine-chilling fear hadn't come from just witnessing Xueqi's frightening power. Instead, it was an instinctive, bone-deep fear. Relos was no ordinary Tier 4 player. He was someone who had developed his mana body to an incredible extent. If he were facing a player of the same tier, his body wouldn't have such a reaction. The only way Relos could explain this situation was that Xueqi was no longer a Tier 4 player. Instead, Xueqi was already a Tier 5 Sword Saint. Although Relos had subconsciously muttered to himself, he had not done so on a private channel. Hence, no matter how soft his voice had been, the Tier 4 experts present heard him loud and clear. Tier 5. Everyone turned towards Xueqi, one after another. Previously, they had been so shocked by Situ Qingtian's and Qiang Tianhe's deaths that they had forgotten about Xueqi's existence and the brief stagnation and fear they had felt. How is this possible? He's reached Tier 5 already. Cold Shadow and the long-haired youth wore grim expressions as they looked at Xueqi, their minds in denial. Xueqi no longer concealed his power. Hence, everyone in the room could feel tremendous pressure originating from a difference in life rating. Xueqi's life rating was something no Tier 4 player could possess, no matter what. If a Tier 4 player's life rating were equated to a bonfire, then Xueqi's life rating was like the scorching sun. Unless he deliberately suppressed and concealed his life rating, there was no way anybody could fail to notice it. Is this why he dares to ignore the two super guilds? When Yuan Tianxin looked at Situ Qingtian's and Qiang Tianhe's corpses and then at Xueqi's nonchalance, the shock in his heart multiplied exponentially. Meanwhile, Purple Jade was at a loss for words, a complicated expression on her face. She had come to Zero Wing City to determine her growth and whether she could catch up to Xueqi. However, let alone catching up, the two of them weren't even standing on the same playing field anymore. Tier 5. In the current era, Tier 5 existences were already considered the apex existences of God's domain. They were capable of single-handedly destroying an entire kingdom, monsters that no current Tier 4 player could hope to go up against. Guild Leader. Fire Dance's eyes brimmed with jubilation and shock when she looked at Xueqi. This revelation was too shocking. If Zero Wing still had to be fearful of the 5 great super guilds before, then it could now ignore their existence. After all, the gap between Tier 4 and Tier 5 was utterly massive. Even if the 5 great superguilds had many monstrously strong players and even individuals at the Beyond Domain realm, none of them would be a match for a Tier 5 existence. Unless the 5 great superguilds similarly produced a Tier 5 expert, it wouldn't matter, even if they attacked Zero Wing with a large number of Tier 4 experts. Not to mention, destroying a guild city was child's play for a Tier 5 player. Only a main city-level guild city could repulse a Tier 5. Moreover, if one didn't have any means of retaliation, even a main city would eventually fall to a Tier 5 player. While Fire Dance was inwardly celebrating Shifeng's achievement, Shifeng turned his sights to Cold Shadow and the long-haired youth from Solar Temple. He then said calmly, "I only dealt a small punishment to the 2 of them today. If your 2 guilds pull such a stunt one more time, I won't mind visiting your headquarters." Cold Shadow and the long-haired youth did not have any thoughts of refuting Shifeng. They promptly left the reception room, together with their guild members. Netherworld Empires and Secret Pavilions members quietly watched with complicated feelings as the 2 Super Guilds members left. Before, they had been treating Zero Wing as just another superpower. However, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call Zero Wing the #1 guild of God's domain now. Not only did Zero Wing possess a Tier 5 Sword Saint, but it even had a holy land like Zero Wing City. At this point, even the 5 great super guilds couldn't hope to compete with it. Given enough time, Zero Wing was sure to become God's domain's #1 guild. At this point, Rello suddenly stood up from his seat, approached Shifeng, and said respectfully, "Guild leader Black Flame, I, Rellos, wish to establish a partnership with Zero Wing on behalf of Netherworld Empire. We do not want much. We only need 1 temporary guild residence in Zero Wing City. In return, Netherworld Empire will provide Zero Wing with resources and business connections in the Western continent. We will also establish a military alliance with Zero Wing to resist the Outer World players. May I know what you think of this proposal, Guild leader Black Flame?" Although Relos's respectful demeanor and sincere offer might seem surprising to others, the masked youth from Netherworld Empire and Yuan Tianxin did not find the situation unexpected at all. While reaching Tier 5 might not be impossible for an expert like Relos, it would still be incredibly challenging. This was because the promotion to Tier 5 had nothing to do with a player's combat standards. Instead, it depended entirely on one's control over and understanding of mana and the ability to construct a Tier 5 mana body. Before reaching Tier 5 himself, Relos would only be seeking death if he behaved arrogantly in front of a Tier 5 existence. Not one to fall behind, Yuan Tianxin also extended a similar partnership offer on behalf of the Secret Pavilion. The only difference was that the Secret Pavilion would only help defend Zero Wing City and Stone Forest City. It would not take part in any other battles. "Sure, I can agree to your conditions," Shifeng said after hearing the 2 guilds' offers. "However, I have an additional condition." Upon receiving this encouraging response, Relos grew a little excited and prompted, "Please speak, Guild leader Black Flame." Initially, Relos thought that Shifeng wouldn't agree to his offer and would choose to monopolize Zero Wing City's resources. Shifeng's willingness to negotiate was a positive outcome. Yuan Tianxin also nodded in agreement with Relos's words. Shifeng smiled and said, "My condition is simple: a complete guild legacy. If your 2 guilds can provide me with your complete guild legacies, I can give you temporary residences in Zero Wing City immediately." Zero Wing was not lacking in resources at the moment. So long as Zero Wing City remained standing, the guild would have no trouble acquiring resources. However, a guild's development did not rely solely on resources. It also needed manpower and talents. Hence, acquiring a complete guild legacy was of utmost importance for Zero Wing. Only with a complete guild legacy could Zero Wing reliably nurture its experts to the domain realm. "Okay, I agree to your condition on Netherworld Empire's behalf," Relos answered without hesitation. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Upon hearing Relos's response, Yuan Tianxin gritted his teeth and said, "The Secret Pavilion has no problem with this either." When Shifeng heard the 2 guilds' positive replies, he inwardly sighed in relief. After all, a guild legacy was the root of a guild. Many guilds would rather face annihilation than share their guild legacy. He then nodded and said, "Good. I wish our 3 guilds a happy partnership from now on." Shortly afterward, Shifeng signed a contract with the Secret Pavilion and Netherworld Empire, taking an essential step towards Zero Wing's becoming God's domain's #1 guild. As Shifeng concluded his discussion with the 2 guilds, News of his promotion to Tier 5 and his killing Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe in Zero Wing City quickly spread and reached the ears of God's domain's various powers. For a time, the entire God's domain was in an uproar. Chapter 2872. God's Domain Shaken. Zero Wing City, Battle Arena. Guild leader Black Flame has been promoted to Tier 5? 16th Cloud was stunned when she read the report she received. Looking at Sorrowful Silence, she asked, "Have you verified this?" Although quite a number of God's Domain's Void Realm experts had gotten promoted to Tier 4 already, with Domain Realm experts even making considerable progress in developing their mana bodies, everyone was still a long way from reaching Tier 5. Creating a Tier 5 mana body was an entirely different matter from improving the completion rate of one's mana body. Since most Tier 4 experts hadn't even developed their mana bodies to a significant extent, getting promoted to Tier 5 shouldn't be possible. Hence, 16th Cloud found it truly hard to believe that Xueqi had already reached Tier 5. However, instead of getting the answer she hoped for, Sorrowful Silence nodded solemnly. He then said in a shocked voice, "Yes, I happened to be in another reception room at the time, negotiating with Zero Wing's representative for a long-term lease of the battle arena's combat rooms. My room was quite close to the reception room used to host the secret pavilion and the 3 super guilds. Every Zero Wing member on the floor reacted strongly. I also saw Mythologies and Solar Temples members leave the residence, looking grim." In reality, Sorrowful Silence didn't just hear about Xueqi's promotion to Tier 5 from Zero Wing's members. He had also personally experienced the frightening aura Xueqi had exuded. Despite being in an entirely different room, he had still sensed that aura clearly, and it had been much stronger than the auras of the Tier 5 NPCs he had come across before. Of course, the Tier 5 NPCs Sorrowful Silence met previously had never displayed any killing intent. They had even been actively suppressing their auras. In comparison, Xueqi had not held anything back when he attacked Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe. This was why Sorrowful Silence was confident Xueqi had reached Tier 5. "This is interesting." 16th Cloud revealed a hint of joy and excitement after hearing Sorrowful Silence's confirmation. Now that Zero Wing has a Tier 5 combatant and opened Zero Wing City to the public, the Eastern Continent's status quo will get reshuffled. "That's right. Thank goodness we're already strategic allies with Zero Wing," Sorrowful Silence said, nodding in agreement with 16th Cloud. Tier 5 existences were different from Tier 4 existences. Tier 4 players couldn't capture a guild city all by themselves. That was a task that required a large number of Tier 4 players. When Tier 4 players were still scarce, Zero Wing might have been able to pose a significant threat to the various superpowers, but it didn't threaten their roots. However, the situation had changed. A Tier 5 player could effortlessly capture a guild city, even a superpower's headquarters, which meant that Zero Wing had the power to uproot and destroy superpowers. Moreover, now that Zero Wing's expert count had skyrocketed, it was entirely capable of expanding its territory and occupying more guild cities. It wouldn't face a manpower shortage even if it captured 5 or 6 more guild cities. When the Eastern Continent's various powers received this piece of news, the superpowers that had always been working against Zero Wing fell into an awkward situation. This was especially true for Starlink. Upon learning about Xueqi's promotion to Tier 5, Starlink's executives all had ashen complexions. Inside the guild leader's office of Starlink's residence in the Dark Knight Empire, "Commander, now that Black Flame has gotten promoted to Tier 5, he definitely won't spare Starlink. Should we migrate our experts to the Western Continent now?" A level 150, Tier 4 female ranger suggested as she looked at the handsome youth quietly reading documents in the office. "How many times have I told you to refer to me as guild leader? I am no longer just the commander of Tremorous Clown but Starlink's guild leader as well," Lu Tiandi said as he glanced at the enchanting female ranger. "Yes, guild leader," the ranger responded calmly as she looked at Lu Tiandi. She then repeated, "Should we migrate now?" "That won't be necessary." Looking at the report in his hands, Lu Tiandi explained nonchalantly, "Black Flame's promotion to Tier 5 is indeed a big problem for us, but there's no need for us to be afraid of him yet. The Eastern Continent's situation is no longer the same as before. The Outer World's forces are Zero Wing's biggest problem. Black Flame's promotion to Tier 5 should pose a considerable headache for those Outer World players. Moreover, Zero Wing has severed all chances of friendly relations with Mythology and Solar Temple. In the next war, the Eastern Continent's native NPC forces will definitely not provide Star Moon Kingdom and the Twin Towers Kingdom with any support. At that time, Zero Wing might not even be able to defend its own guild cities, let alone target other forces. If I were Black Flame, I wouldn't have exposed myself as a Tier 5 so soon and become a target for the Outer World forces. Instead, I would focus on raiding dungeons and world bosses to raise my guild's strength. God's Domain isn't a single-player game. A single Tier 5 player cannot stop all of the Outer World's NPC forces. The Enchanting Ranger's eyes brightened at Lu Tiandi's words. Doesn't this mean we have a chance? We can forget about Silverwing City since the Outer World forces will capture it. On the other hand, we can get our hands on Stone Forest City since it is close to the Dark Knight Empire. Even if Black Flame is Tier 5, he can defend only one location at a time. Once the war resumes, he'll be preoccupied with Zero Wing City. At that time, we can find an opportunity to secure Stone Forest City, Lu Tiandi said, smiling. However, this isn't something we can accomplish alone. Go and contact the superpowers that have a grudge against Zero Wing now. I believe they will be more than willing to come on board this plan. Yes, sir. The ranger nodded. While God's Domain's various powers were reeling from the news of Shifeng's promotion to Tier 5 and preparing countermeasures, Shifeng had finalized his discussion with the Secret Pavilion and Netherworld Empire over the specifics of their partnership. Guild leader, now that we have the two guild legacies, we can probably nurture a batch of Void Realm experts and possibly Domain Realm experts within a short period, Firedance said. When she thought about how the Secret Pavilion and Netherworld Empire would be sending all their information on the Realms of Refinement to Zero Wing's headquarters tomorrow, she couldn't help feeling excited. Although the guild legacy Zero Wing received from Unyielding Soul previously was indeed valuable, the information provided allowed Zero Wing to nurture experts only to the Flowing Water Realm at a reliable rate. It was still a far cry from a complete guild legacy. After all, only Void Realm experts could serve as a superpower's mainstay. Zero Wing had far too few of such peak experts. The only reason Zero Wing managed to produce as many Tier 4 experts as it had now was the various God's Domain legacies and excellent training environment the guild possessed. Even then, these Tier 4 experts could only rank among the lower rungs of Tier 4 players. That's right. Shifeng nodded. He similarly felt happy over this matter. Only when Zero Wing possessed a complete guild legacy of its own could it become a true titan in God's Domain. Once the guild had the Secret Pavilions and Netherworld Empire's guild legacies, it would no longer have to worry about lacking peak experts. Zero Wing could also recruit more talented players since these talents would no longer have to worry about Zero Wing lacking a guild legacy. Guild leader, what should we do next? Firedance asked. Now that we've become enemies with Mythology and Solar Temple, the Outer World forces will target Star Moon Kingdom and the Twin Towers Kingdom once the war resumes. Should we start withdrawing our forces from those two kingdoms? Mythology and Solar Temple held significant influence in the Eastern Continent. It was also certain that the Outer World forces would target Zero Wing. However, with Zero Wing's current strength, defending Star Moon Kingdom and the Twin Towers Kingdom wouldn't be feasible. To reduce Zero Wing's losses, the guild ought to begin pulling its forces out of these two kingdoms as soon as possible. Next. Chuckling, Shifeng said. Go and gather all of the guild's Tier 4s now. Gather all of the guild's Tier 48? Shifeng's command confused Firedance. With the imminent war, what they should do was relocate the mobile fortress and Silverwing City. Otherwise, once the Outer World's NPC army arrived, Zero Wing would lose both strongholds. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Hey, yes. Smiling, Shifeng said, since I've reached Tier 5 already, it's about time we took care of the trouble over at the Orc Empire. We'll also use this opportunity to let the various superpowers know the consequences of offending us. The current God's Domain had far too little knowledge of Tier 5 existences. Even if Shifeng had killed Situ Qingtian and Qiang Tianhe, the various superpowers only knew that he was much stronger than Tier 4 players. They still didn't understand what Tier 5 represented. I'll have them gather right away. Firedance burned with eagerness when she heard Shifeng's words. Ever since she had gotten promoted to Tier 4, she had never had a good fight or launched an all-out war against other superpowers. She also wasn't the only person to hold such sentiments. The other Tier 4 experts in the guild harbored similar thoughts. Now, they finally had the opportunity to display their strength. Chapter 2873. Present Zero-Wing Orc Empire, Silverwing City. Droves of people came and went on the city's main street. More than half of these people were NPCs from the neighboring kingdoms and empires. Due to the world passages opening and the invasion of the Outer Worlds player and NPC forces, both native players and NPCs had their range of activity restricted significantly. As the strongest city in the Orc Empire, one capable of fending off attacks from anything below Tier 5, Silverwing City had already become a mecca for the neighboring kingdoms and empires players and NPCs. Moreover, the news of Black Flame reaching Tier 5 sent the number of players visiting Silverwing City skyrocketing, resulting in overcrowding. All of these new arrivals sought to join Zero Wing and develop long-term in Silverwing City. At this time, Tier 4 experts radiating frightening auras appeared in Zero Wing's residence, one after another. The arrival of these experts instantly silenced the bustling residents. Even the players lining up to take the test to join the guild couldn't help feeling frightened. What's going on with Zero Wing? Why have so many Tier 4 experts gathered? Are they here to maintain order since there are so many people applying to join the guild? Amazing! So, this is Zero Wing? I saw over 50 Tier 4 experts already. Some super guilds don't have this many Tier 4 experts. That's not all of it. Look at their equipment. Every one of them has at least 3 pieces of level 150 epic equipment. I wonder when I'll be able to get one for myself? The eyes of the players lined up in the residence's courtyard widened in shock as they took in Zero Wing's Tier 4 experts. Previously, they had recognized that Zero Wing was a powerful guild but felt that it had become a superpower in God's domain only because of Zero Wing City and Black Flame's undefeated legend. Upon seeing the situation now, they realized that Zero Wing's foundation was far more terrifying than they thought. Not only did Zero Wing possess far more Tier 4 experts than most superpowers, but these experts also had superior equipment standards compared to the various superpowers Tier 4 experts. Currently, over 50 Tier 4 experts were gathered in the courtyard. This was a spectacular scene that those present would rarely get to see in their lifetimes. Not to mention, these Tier 4 experts were not repressing their auras at all. When these auras overlapped, they came together to generate an aura far more frightening than that of superior mythic monsters. Even Tier 3 experts shuddered involuntarily, forced to keep their distance from these Tier 4 experts. Why would Zero Wing gather so many Tier 4 experts here? Is it conducting a major operation or something? This is indeed unusual. A guild would gather so many of its Tier 4 experts in one place only for a special event. As the number of Tier 4 experts kept increasing, the non-members in the courtyard felt something amiss. Even Zero Wing's members started growing antsy at this situation. Ji Luorong looked at Violet Cloud, who had just arrived in the courtyard, and asked, "Big Sis Violet, do you know why the guild leader suddenly summoned us?" "I don't know either. Big Sis Fire suddenly contacted me and told me to come here right away," Violet Cloud replied, shaking her head. She then visually inspected Ji Luorong and exclaimed in surprise, "Luorong, your mana body is at the 110% completion rate already. You've made so much progress." Ji Luorong had joined Zero Wing only recently. Although Zero Wing was much stronger than before, the fact that Ji Luorong managed to increase her mana body's completion rate from under 105% to her current 110% proved that she was monstrously talented. Hee. It's because of the Sword Saint legacy Big Sis Fire gave me. If not for it, I would have taken much longer to reach 110%, Ji Luorong said, smiling. Inwardly, she still felt a little delighted. After all, only a tiny number of experts in God's domain had managed to develop their mana bodies to a 110% completion rate at this stage of the game. However, when Ji Luorong carefully sensed the mana surrounding Violet Cloud's body, her delight instantly vanished. The mana close to Violet Cloud had already liquefied. Although it was limited to a small portion of her mana, it was still better than nothing. The fact that Violet Cloud could accomplish this feat meant that her mana body's completion rate had already reached 115% or above, according to what Xueqi told them. She might have even reached the 120% completion rate already. At this time, a masked middle-aged man clad in black approached Ji Luorong. The aura this man radiated practically rivaled that of a superior mythic monster. This middle-aged man was none other than Crimson Mask, another Eternal Glory member who had joined Zero Wing. "Commander, why did Big Sis Fire suddenly call for us? Is something big going on?" Crimson Mask asked curiously as he looked at Ji Luorong, I don't know. Big Sis Fire only told me to come here as soon as possible and nothing else. Ji Luorong shook her head. When she noticed the qualitative transformation of Crimson Mask's demeanor, she couldn't help sighing to herself ruefully. B*/B, B greater than Y/B initially, Crimson Mask had opposed Eternal Glory's joining Zero Wing. He felt that even without joining a guild, he could still develop Eternal Glory to great heights. However, after a few bouts with Fire Dance and receiving a sound thrashing each time, Crimson Mask had changed completely. Now, he was even referring to Fire Dance as Big Sis. However, Crimson Mask was much more fortunate than someone else. His fate considerably better. Besides Crimson Mask, a lunatic named Invincible Swallow had come to Zero Wing to challenge Violet Cloud, and the fate this lunatic suffered was simply terrible. That fight could be described as an adult beating up a toddler. Afterward, when Invincible Swallow returned for a rematch at a later date, Violet Cloud just so happened to be out on an errand. Aqua Rose had been present at the time, so he challenged her instead. After that match, Invincible Swallow began questioning his life. Even now, he was still training crazily in Stone Forest City's battle arena every day. While Zero Wing's Tier 4 members wondered why Fire Dance had suddenly gathered them, a man and a woman approached the courtyard from a distance. These two people were none other than Xueqi and Fire Dance. Xueqi was just walking casually, yet his steps distorted the space around him. It was as if the surrounding space couldn't contain his presence and could crumble at any time. In addition, as Xueqi did not bother concealing his aura, everyone present gasped involuntarily when they sensed it. Although Xueqi wasn't directing any hostility at anyone, merely letting his aura radiate freely, the Tier 4 players present felt their bodies becoming incredibly heavy as if someone had tied metal weights to their bodies. As for the Tier 3 players present, they instinctively retreated from Xueqi, not daring to move even an inch closer to him. He's the guild leader? Crimson Mask was shocked as he looked at Xueqi. Before today, Crimson Mask had only ever heard the name of Black Flame. From the gossip circulating inside Zero Wing, he knew that Xueqi was Zero Wing's #1 expert and that his existence was the linchpin of the entire guild. Crimson Mask had thought that Xueqi was only slightly stronger than Fire Dance. However, given this situation, Xueqi wasn't just somewhat stronger than Fire Dance. He was practically standing on a whole other level. Aside from Crimson Mask, many of the Tier 4 experts who had joined Zero Wing recently were also stunned by Xueqi's terrifying aura. After glancing at the crowd gathered, Fire Dance reported to Xueqi, guild leader, apart from the 2 vice guild leaders and around a dozen others, who are currently occupied with important matters, all of the guild's Tier 4 members are here. Not bad. Xueqi nodded in approval as he scanned the crowd before him. A total of 59 Tier 4 players waited in the courtyard, their levels ranging from level 148 to level 156. More than half of these players had broken through the 100% threshold of their mana bodies already, with nearly 20 having reached the 105% threshold and 7 at the 110% threshold. The 7 to reach 110% completion rate or above were Violet Cloud, Fire Dance, Ji Luorong, Alluring Summer, Yan Tianqing, Iluafei, and Silent Blade. One could consider this lineup a spectacular force at this stage of the game. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU at this time, Cola, who had already reached level 150, could no longer hold back his excitement, asking, Guild leader, are we going to raid the Orc capital city? The Orc capital city's core area was a special secret land. The degree of danger in this secret land closely rivaled that of a God Mode regional dungeon. The loot inside was likewise incredible. However, one required a sufficiently large team of Tier 4 players to raid it. This was why nobody had succeeded in raiding it even now. Meanwhile, Zero Wing currently had 59 Tier 4 players and 1 Tier 5 player gathered. They were already more than qualified to raid the Orc capital city's secret land. When everyone heard Cola's words, they immediately grew restless. After all, this was a level 150+ secret land they were talking about. They would definitely gain significant harvests if they raided it. No, I didn't gather you here for the Orc capital city, but for something else instead, Xueqi said, shaking his head. Something else? Cola and the others grew confused. That's right. Smiling, Xueqi explained, to ensure our survival in the upcoming war and Zero Wing's future development, I plan on annihilating Ancient Rock City and eliminating Beast Emperor from the Orc Empire. Chapter 2874. Descending upon Ancient Rock City Orc Empire, Ancient Rock City. The walls of Ancient Rock City were over 50 meters tall. Despite numerous foe saint monsters roaming the barren land outside the city walls, the Tier 3 players patrolling atop the walls completely disregarded these monsters as if they did not exist. Surprisingly, the foe saint monsters that most of the Eastern Continent's players regarded as a nightmare showed no intentions of attacking Ancient Rock City. They behaved like scarecrows under the city walls. At this time, a merchant caravan, composed of over 100 players and over a dozen horse-drawn carriages, slowly approached Ancient Rock City from a distance. Despite catching sight of these players, the countless foe saint monsters roaming the barren land outside Ancient Rock City behaved as if they did not see this caravan. Looking at the level 120 foe saint monsters around him, a level 136, Tier 3 swordsman escorting the caravan exclaimed, "The Sacred Heart Amulet Saint's hand sold us is amazing. Those mythic foe saint monsters ignore us even when we're only 30 yards away from them." Even NPCs were helpless against the foe saint monsters running rampant in the many neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. The danger made it increasingly difficult for merchant caravans to make money. However, so long as a caravan carried a Sacred Heart Amulet, it could avoid the foe saint monsters' attacks altogether. At the swordsman's words, the level 137, Tier 3 Guardian Knight sitting at the head of the caravan looked at the Sacred Heart Amulet in his hand. With a hint of ambition in his eyes he said, "I know, right? We must buy some more of these Sacred Heart Amulets in Ancient Rock City. We can make a fortune reselling them in the neighboring kingdoms and empires." The Sacred Heart Amulet was a non-bag space item. Although players could wear it on their person, they couldn't store it in their bags. It also couldn't be transported by teleportation. However, Saint's Hand sold the Sacred Heart Amulet only in Ancient Rock City. None of Saint's Hand's other residences sold it. Many merchant players and adventurer teams had realized that they could make a fortune by purchasing the Sacred Heart Amulets in bulk from Ancient Rock City and reselling them in the neighboring kingdoms and empires. Nowadays, many foe saint monsters roamed the territories of the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Leaving the safety of towns and cities would expose players to not only the standard monsters but also a large number of foe saint monsters. The Sacred Heart Amulet could mitigate the danger. More importantly, the Sacred Heart Amulet was a consumable, so it was always in high demand in the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. Selling these amulets in these countries wouldn't be a problem. The main reason their Fighting Tiger adventurer team had invested a considerable fortune into hiring more than a dozen advanced carriages was to make an even bigger fortune off these amulets. At this time, a level 136, Tier 3 female ranger standing atop the leading carriage pointed at a distant silhouette and shouted, "Commander, we're almost at Ancient Rock City." "Okay. Everyone, get yourselves ready, newbies especially. Ancient Rock City is different from other guild cities." The leading Guardian Knight shouted through the team chat. Although the city prohibits fighting, it is still a bona fide dark city. There are tons of dark players there, so make sure not to get marked by them. Otherwise, we'll be in a ton of trouble once we leave the city. At the Guardian Knight's words, the team's veterans promptly took out a magic scroll for the Tier 1 Mana Guard spell and used it on themselves. With the Mana Guard active, the common tracking mark would be ineffective against them. Upon seeing this, the newbies to Ancient Rock City also took out the magic scrolls they prepared and used the scrolls on themselves. As the caravan trundled increasingly closer to Ancient Rock City, the newbies couldn't help gasping in shock at their first sight of the towering stronghold. Ancient Rock City was undoubtedly the most spectacular guild city they had ever seen in their careers in God's domain. Not only did the city have walls over 50 meters tall guarding it, but it covered an area rivaling NPC main cities. Most importantly, two 30-meter-tall foe saint monsters flanked the city's entrance. The two monsters wore steel plate armor, and each carried two gigantic swords. If one inspected these two monsters with an identification skill, one would find that they were level 160 superior mythic-ranked foe saint slayers. The aura of these two foe saint slayers sent involuntary shudders through all the players entering Ancient Rock City. Just by standing there, the two superior mythics made everyone feel as if their souls would get devoured. Besides the two foe saint slayers standing guard, more than 30 evil dark dragons wheeled in the sky above Ancient Rock City. These 50-meter-long evil dark dragons radiated auras close to rivaling the superior mythic-ranked foe saint slayers. When the Fighting Tiger adventurer team arrived before the city gate, the members spotted a long line of players and NPCs waiting to enter the city. Many of these NPCs exuded dense bloodlust, which proved that they roamed the dark side of God's domain. At this time, however, even Tier 4 NPCs were obediently waiting in line. Amazing! There are so many Tier 4 monsters and NPCs here. Even a kingdom's capital city isn't comparable to this place. The first-time visitors among Fighting Tiger exclaimed. Of course. Ancient Rock City is Saint's Hand's main headquarters. Moreover, the city has already become a mecca for the dark forces operating in the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire. If we include the city's defensive structures, even the outer-world forces will have difficulty taking down Ancient Rock City. Now, many well-known and top adventurer teams are developing here, the leading Guardian Knight explained. From what I heard, the superpower Miracle has also dispatched many experts to garrison Ancient Rock City. Ancient Rock City is the safest city in the Orc Empire. Nobody will dare target it. The Saint's Hand member conducting inspections nearby overheard the Guardian Knight's words and couldn't help putting on a prideful expression. Currently, Ancient Rock City was only one step away from becoming a main city. Its combat power far exceeded that of guild cities of the various superpowers. Had Saint's Hand not been wary of the Outer World's NPC forces, it would have long since flattened the neighboring kingdoms and the Black Dragon Empire, becoming an existence surpassing the 5 great super guilds. However, as the Fighting Tiger adventurer team was undergoing inspection, a gigantic figure suddenly approached Ancient Rock City from the distant sky. Its speed was as fast as a mighty gale, and it stopped only after arriving in front of the city. The steel behemoth over 100 meters long hung in the sky roughly 400 yards from Ancient Rock City, overlooking the entire city. Several dozen players stood on this steel behemoth. Read latest chapters at Xueqi World. EU. At this steel behemoth's appearance, the entire Ancient Rock City went into an uproar. It's the Crimson Dragon flying ship. That's Zero Wing's flying ship. Quick look. Isn't that Black Flame? Nowadays, almost everybody in God's domain was familiar with the Crimson Dragon flying ship. After all, this thing had long since become Zero Wing's signature. Zero Wing was even using some of these flying ships to transport cargo across the sea, to the envy of many superpowers. However, Zero Wing's sudden visit to Ancient Rock City confused many of the city's players. Meanwhile, upon spotting the Crimson Dragon flying ship, the evil dark dragons patrolling the city's airspace let loose deafening roars. The 2 foe saint slayers standing guard by the city's entrance also raised their heads and gripped their weapons, going on full alert against the flying ship. As everyone in Ancient Rock City fell into panic and confusion, Xueqi looked down at the city below from aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship and shouted, 5 minutes. I will give you 5 minutes to withdraw from the city if you do not wish to get dragged into Saint's Hand's problem. Anyone who doesn't withdraw after 5 minutes will disappear from God's domain together with Ancient Rock City. Chapter 2875. Ancient Rock City in peril. Is Zero Wing planning to attack the city? This is crazy. Zero Wing must have lost its mind. How dare they attack Ancient Rock City? Inevitably, Ancient Rock City's inhabitants doubted Xueqi's declaration, with many of them considering it a joke. Saint's Hand had continuously strengthened Ancient Rock City. Currently, the city's defenses were superior to those of other guild cities, and the combatants stationed within the city were more than enough to instill fear in the various superpowers. Not to mention, the dark forces of over a dozen countries gathered in the city. Apart from dark guilds, there were also plenty of NPC forces among these dark forces. These forces had paid a considerable price to settle in Ancient Rock City, and even treated the city as their base of operations. Anyone who dared to attack Ancient Rock City would make an enemy of these dark forces. Be it dark guilds or dark NPC forces, every one of them had at least 2 or 3 Tier 4 combatants under their command. Moreover, Miracle had recently garrisoned the city, so there should be close to 200 Tier 4 combatants defending Ancient Rock City right now. One could conquer an entire kingdom with that many Tier 4 combatants. Most importantly, Ancient Rock City was currently an advanced guild city, only one step away from becoming a main guild city. Ancient Rock City's resident players weren't the only ones shocked by this situation. Beast Emperor, who was conducting research in the city lord's mansion, inadvertently crushed the research instrument he held when he received news of Zero Wing's sudden arrival. Black Flame, how bold of you! It seems you've gotten arrogant while I was lying low. Beast Emperor growled with a cold glint in his eyes. Lord Beast Emperor, Black Flame is rumored to have reached Tier 5 already. Should we notify the Sacred Envoy? The level 152, Tier 4 Berserker, who had made the report, asked. News of Shifeng's promotion to Tier 5 had long since reached the ears of God's domain's various powers. Meanwhile, a Tier 5 player was in existence. Even Saint's Hand had to be wary, putting away the tools on his table. Beast Emperor glanced at Saint's Hand's guild leader, Furious Fist, and smiled lightly. No need. Call for some people and come along with me. I want to see what exactly gives Black Flame the confidence to act arrogantly in my ancient rock city. After saying so, Beast Emperor turned around and left. A robust man with black skin covered in flashing runes, who stood guard before the research room, silently trailed him. Yes, sir. Furious Fist hurriedly followed after the robust man. Less than 3 minutes after Shifeng's declaration, many players and adventurer teams, afraid of trouble, had already withdrawn from ancient Rock City. Only dark players and a few courageous normal players chose to remain. At the same time, players from the various dark adventurer teams and dark guilds also gathered at ancient Rock City's entrance, one after another, and watched the fleeing players. These cowards! Zero Wing sent only a few dozen players, yet these people are already running away. Zero Wing is famous, after all. It's normal for them to run away. Not to mention, Black Flame is also here. It'd be strange for them not to escape. These people are simply idiots. Zero Wing won its past battles only because of the powerful defenses of its cities. That's right. So what if Zero Wing managed to produce a Tier 5 player? We'll teach these guys what it means to offend us dark forces. The dark players revealed expressions of rage and excitement as they looked up at the Crimson Dragon flying ship. Zero Wing's reputation was through the roof right now. Moreover, Xueqi had gotten promoted to Tier 5. Hence, players were starting to consider Zero Wing God's domain's #1 guild. If a battle were to occur in the outside world, dark players like themselves would indeed be afraid of Xueqi. However, it was a different story if the battle took place inside ancient Rock City. With the city's magic array, they could still take him on with the many Tier 4 players they had. Not to mention, a large number of Faux Saint monsters protected ancient Rock City, including 2 superior mythic-ranked Faux Saint slayers. Even if they couldn't kill Xueqi, they could, at least, make the other members of Zero Wing suffer. As the 5-minute limit approached, the number of players retreating from ancient Rock City also increased. At this time, the players that had withdrawn from ancient Rock City suddenly felt a chill envelop their bodies. Even Tier 3 experts found themselves partially kneeling on the ground. The next moment, a group of 40 players flew out from the City Lord's mansion. Apart from Furious Fist and Saint's Hand's Tier 4 executives, 17 players on the team were people that none of ancient Rock City's inhabitants had ever seen before. These 17 players looked nothing like humans. Not only were their bodies pitch black, but there were also flashing runes engraved all over their bodies. These players' auras were also stronger than even that of superior mythic monsters. When combined, their auras transformed into a tsunami that swept through the entire city and its surroundings. Amazing! Is this Saint's Hand's rumored bloodstained Night Legion? That's not all. Even Beast Emperor left the City Lord's mansion. It seems we'll have a good show this time. Indeed. I heard that Beast Emperor has constantly been plotting revenge on Zero Wing after getting slaughtered at the Secret Covenant Tower. Now that Zero Wing has come knocking on his door, there's no way Beast Emperor will spare Zero Wing. The various major powers experts standing atop the city walls were surprised when they saw Beast Emperor and the Bloodstained Knights making an appearance. At the same time, they were shocked by the power Saint's Hand displayed. The superpowers on the Eastern continent had always been fearful of Saint's Hand, and this situation greatly confused the various major powers. However, after seeing Saint's Hand's top combatants, they realized that the superpowers' fear of Saint's Hand wasn't without basis. Setting aside the fact that Saint's Hand had over 20 Tier 4 experts at the Void Realm or above, just the 17 rumored Bloodstained Knights were more than enough to instill fear into any player force. After all, even a Tier 4 player would tremble in fear if they had to go up against a Bloodstained Knight, let alone 17 Bloodstained Knights simultaneously. That would be a nightmare. Shortly afterward, Beast Emperor's group arrived above the city gate. Seeing this, the various powers' leadership promptly stepped forward to greet Beast Emperor. 1,000 Miles, one of Miracle's Vice Guild leaders, was even among them. 1,000 Miles' actions astonished the various major powers present. They never thought that even a superpower like Miracle would defer to Beast Emperor. After Beast Emperor responded to a few greetings, he flew into the air with his subordinates and glared at Xueqi on the Crimson Dragon flying ship. He then said coldly, "Black Flame. You and I could have stayed out of each other's way in the Orc Empire, yet you chose to come to attack me. So long as you apologize right now, I can ignore this transgression for the time being. Otherwise, none of you will be returning alive today." After Beast Emperor finished speaking, a frightening amount of evil energy erupted from the 17 blood-stained knights behind him, distorting the surrounding space and muddying it. The terrifying power within the evil energy made even those who had fled more than 1,000 yards from the city tremble. Moreover, the two foe Saint Slayers had flown to flank the Crimson Dragon flying ship, while the 30-plus evil Dark Dragons had surrounded it, thoroughly sealing off all of Zero Wing's escape routes. The fleeing players gasped at this scene. With such a force under Saint's Hand's command, the guild could take on even an empire. Damn it! I thought Saint's Hand was going to suffer this time, but it seems I miscalculated. Zero Wing has always relied on Black Flame to survive. Now, it seems Zero Wing has finally met its match. If this situation isn't handled properly, apart from Black Flame, the other Zero Wing members present probably won't leave alive. At this time, even a fool could tell how powerful Saint's Hand's forces were. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that even an NPC force with a Tier 5 combatant under its command wouldn't dare to offend Saint's Hand casually, let alone Zero Wing. Apologize. Xueqi laughed. Beast Emperor, it seems you're growing senile. Have you forgotten how you died at my hands last time? Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. You bastard. Xueqi's words enraged Beast Emperor. However, before Beast Emperor could say anything more, mana exploded from Xueqi's body. Immediately, an indescribably heavy pressure descended on the entire ancient rock city. World creation. The next moment, Beast Emperor and the others plummeted to the ground one after another. Even the Tier 4 experts standing on the city walls found themselves on one knee under the strong pressure. Chapter 2876. Shock. Impossible. Every player inside Ancient Rock City nearly had their eyes fall out of their sockets when they saw Beast Emperor and the other Tier 45 plummeting to the ground. Even the Zero Wing members present were stunned. This scene thoroughly exceeded their imagination. In the current God's domain, Tier 4 players were already considered peak combatants and displayed a guild's foundation. Yet, under Xueqi's mana domain, Beast Emperor and the other Tier 4 combatants on his side could exhibit only 20% or so of their usual combat power. They even lost their ability to fly and manipulate ambient mana. In the blink of an eye, these existences that originally stood at the peak of God's domain had become no different from Tier 3 players. At this time, let alone a Tier 5 player like Xueqi, even Tier 4 experts could slaughter Ancient Rock City's defenders. This is the strength of Tier 5s? When the players who had evacuated Ancient Rock City looked at Xueqi hovering proudly above the city, an indescribable sense of shock and horror filled their hearts. As veteran players of God's domain, they knew that a significant difference existed between tiers. They also knew that a Tier 5 player undoubtedly stood at the apex of all players in the current God's domain. However, only after witnessing the power of a Tier 5 player did they understand how large the gap between Tier 4 and Tier 5 was. In front of a Tier 5 existence, Tier 4 players would only be making fools of themselves if they tried to win by Zerg tactics. The Tier 4 monsters among Ancient Rock City's defenders, though, weren't as badly off as the Tier 4 players. Because monsters mainly relied on their basic attributes and rarely manipulated the ambient mana to do combat, their penalty was not as large as the Tier 4 players. Regardless, the mythic-ranked evil Dark Dragons still had their combat power reduced by half, whereas the superior mythic-ranked foe Saint Slayers had theirs reduced by 30%. Moreover, all of them lost their ability to fly. Against Tier 4 players capable of flight, they would be at a significant disadvantage. Unlike everyone else, Xueqi wasn't surprised at the scene before him. Everyone failed to understand that his mana domain was different from the average mana domain. Existences at the world creation standard could create a small world within their mana domains. The power of such a mana domain was on an entirely different level compared to the average mana domain. Even a Tier 5 existence would be at a disadvantage if they got caught within a Tier 5 world creation expert's mana domain without any countermeasures, let alone Tier 4 players and monsters. Meanwhile, after experiencing this unexpected turn of events, a hint of fear had surfaced in Beast Emperor's eyes. Despite the situation, he still sneered, "Black Flame, don't get too delighted just yet. Don't forget that this is ancient Rock City." As soon as Beast Emperor finished speaking, an enormous, threefold magic array manifested from the City Lord's mansion. After the magic array gathered mana from the surroundings for a brief moment, it released pulses of mana that enveloped the city. Immediately, the city defenders felt the heavy pressure on their bodies disappear. Now, although Xueqi's mana domain still subjected everyone to a certain degree of suppression, their combat power had recovered to 80% of their usual. More importantly, they had also regained their ability to fly. Xueqi was slightly surprised when he looked at the barrier enveloping ancient Rock City. What a powerful barrier. It seems you've invested quite a lot into this city. His mana domain could render even master magic barriers useless. One would need to use at least a Grandmaster magic barrier to contend with his mana domain. Meanwhile, Grandmaster magic arrays were incredibly rare in God's domain, let alone a Grandmaster magic array that could cover an entire city. The value of every set of scrolls for such a magic array could rival that of fragmented legendary items. Black Flame. Do you think you're the only one with the means to defend cities? Looking at Xueqi, Beast Emperor sneered. This is an ancient Grandmaster magic array. Although ancient Rock City hasn't reached the main city level yet, it is no weaker than a main city in terms of defense. Although you're Tier 5, don't even think about taking down ancient Rock City. A main city's defensive magic array was wholly capable of withstanding Tier 5 attacks. So long as the magic array had a constant energy supply, even Tier 5 existences shouldn't think of penetrating it. Meanwhile, exhausting the energy supply of a main city's defensive magic array wasn't something just one Tier 5 existence could accomplish. One would need several Tier 5 individuals or siege weapons with Tier 5 destructive power to do so. However, Zero Wing only had one Tier 5 combatant now. In other words, breaking through ancient Rock City's defensive barrier would be nothing but a pipe dream. When Beast Emperor finished speaking, the members of the various powers in ancient Rock City sighed in relief. They then looked at Xueqi with sneers on their faces. Black Flame. So what if you're Tier 5? That's right. What can you do by yourself? When Xueqi had extended his mana domain before, everyone within ancient Rock City had felt strong pressure overwhelming them. Saint's Hand's Tier 4 experts were no exception. However, now that ancient Rock City had deployed its defensive magic array, even a Tier 5 player like Xueqi would be helpless against them. Next, all they needed to do was fight a war of attrition, something they did not fear in the slightest. After all, ancient Rock City had accumulated a massive stockpile of magic crystals from the sales of Sacred Heart amulets. Not to mention, the Outer World's NPC forces would soon begin the second war against the Eastern Continent's native forces. And in this upcoming war, the Outer World forces would set Zero Wing as their primary target. Zero Wing couldn't afford a war of attrition with ancient Rock City at all. The longer it fought, the worse off it would be in the upcoming war. Guild leader, let's attack the barrier together. I want to see how long it can last against our combined attacks. Fire Dance said, gnashing her teeth as she looked at ancient Rock City's arrogant residents. That's right. If it spells with Tier 5 power, I can use a few as well. I refuse to believe we can't break this barrier. Zhao Yueru said, nodding in agreement with Fire Dance. For other Tier 4 players, exhibiting Tier 5 power would indeed be a challenging task. However, her Frost Flame's Wrath was a top-tier fragmented legendary weapon. With it, the Fire and Ice-type Tier 4 spells she cast could exhibit Tier 5 power. No, that won't be necessary, Xueqi said, shaking his head. Zhao Yueru was a bona fide mobile turret. If he hadn't gotten promoted to Tier 5, she would rank at the very top of Zero Wing in terms of firepower. However, besieging a city was different from attacking monsters. The defenders inside the city could launch attacks to counter Zhao Yueru's spells. The defenders could even target her directly, preventing her from casting her spells altogether. This would drastically reduce Zhao Yueru's ability to damage the defensive magic array. Having only the occasional Tier 5 attack land on the defensive magic array would yield hardly any effect. But we can't just sit still and do nothing, right? Zhao Yueru said in annoyance. Although she knew that she couldn't contribute much, it was still better than nothing. Moreover, if they allowed Saint's Hand to continue behaving so arrogantly, it would deal a massive blow to Zero Wing's morale. After all, Zero Wing had already declared to the public that it would capture Ancient Rock City. Currently, everyone was watching this fight. The various powers absent from this battlefield were no exception. They were all observing every detail of the battlefield and tensely awaiting the outcome of this siege. If Zero Wing won, then the various superpowers would no longer dare entertain thoughts of resisting Zero Wing on the eastern continent. However, if Zero Wing returned foiled, many superpowers would begin having designs on Zero Wing. They might even ally with Saint's Hand to deal with Zero Wing. Of course not, Xueqi said, chuckling. I'm merely saying that you don't need to take action. All you need to do is watch. Just watch. Zhao Yueru looked at Xueqi in confusion. The guild city in front of them rivaled a main city. How could they possibly capture it just by looking at it? The other Zero Wing members present were also confused, failing to understand what was going through their guild leader's mind. No matter how many times Furious Fist inspected the dragon hovering in the sky with his ordinary identification skill, the results said this dragon was the real deal. Moreover, there was no doubt that the dragon was Tier 4, and it had reached level 165. However, he couldn't get any further information on the dragon without a higher-ranking identification skill. As a vice guild leader of Miracle, 1000 Miles should have a high-ranking identification skill, so it wouldn't be strange if he managed to see some more information. A look of despair appeared on 1000 Miles's face as he said, "That's not just a dragon. That's a divine dragon. A silver divine dragon." Divine dragon? Furious Fist was stunned. Glaring at 1000 Miles, he demanded, "Brother Miles, you're not joking with me, right? If you are, this joke isn't funny at all." Divine dragons were kings among the dragon race. An ordinary dragon and a divine dragon were as different as an ordinary monster and an archaic species. The two were completely different creations. Turning to Furious Fist, 1000 Miles smiled wryly and said, "I wish that were the case, but do you think I'm joking?" 1000 Miles regretted using his high-ranking identification skill on the dragon. Had he not probed any further, he would have held some hope for victory in his heart. Now, though, no such hope existed. Meanwhile, when the players who had fled Ancient Rock City gazed at the distant silver divine dragon, they were flabbergasted for a long time. Is this why Zero Wing was confident in attacking Ancient Rock City? A divine dragon? I must be dreaming. That's right. This must be a dream. I just reached Tier 4, so how could Black Flame have reached Tier 5 and gained control over a divine dragon already? This is a dream. Many people began deluding themselves as they looked at the silver divine dragon, none of them willing to face reality. However, Beast Emperor, who stood atop the city gate, had no plans of giving up. Glaring at the divine dragon in the sky, he ranted with a maniacal expression, "Black Flame. So what if you have a divine dragon? My ancient Grandmaster magic array can stop it." The silver divine dragon in the sky suddenly opened its maw before Beast Emperor could continue. The next instant, all mana within a 10,000-yard radius vanished, and everyone within this area felt indescribably stifled. Roar! Accompanied by a deafening roar, a beam of divine light devoured the entire Ancient Rock City. Divine Dragon's Breath. When the dazzling divine light descended upon Ancient Rock City, it forced all players within a radius of several tens of thousands of yards to shield their eyes. The divine light gradually faded away, and only then did everyone open their eyes again to inspect the breath attack's effect. How? Impossible. When the players standing several thousand yards from Ancient Rock City saw the city again, they were utterly dumbfounded. The divine dragon's breath didn't just shatter Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array. It had even vaporized the towering city lord's mansion at the center of the city along with almost every player and building in the city. Taking their place was a massive crater that spanned the entire city. Only the Tier 4 experts on the city walls who managed to activate their life-saving skills in time, and the two Faux Saint Slayers had survived the attack. Everything inside Ancient Rock City's perimeter wall had been reduced to a wasteland. No. This isn't possible. Beast Emperor fell into chaos and madness as he looked at what remained of his city. And he wasn't alone. Furious Fist's mind also stopped working at this cataclysmic scene, his body crumbling powerlessly to the ground. Beep CR/B, all of the investments we've made. All of the forces we've gathered. Gone. As if they were nothing but a joke. 1,000 Miles, who had also survived the ordeal, was rendered speechless for a long time. One attack. It had taken just one attack for ancient Rock City, a city rivaling main cities, to disappear. Who could believe this? Zero Wings members aboard the Crimson Dragon flying ship were similarly stunned by this scene. This was especially true for Ji Luorong and Crimson Mask, who had been active on the Western continent until recently. An indescribable sense of shock filled the two. The Western continent had legends describing the dragon's devastating power and how a single breath attack could destroy entire cities. There were also stories of kingdoms meeting their end because they had angered a dragon. Previously, Ji Luorong and Crimson Mask treated these stories as mere folklore. Now, they finally understood that those stories weren't just legends to embellish God's domain but facts. In reality, even Shufeng was shocked by this outcome. This is the power of a divine dragon? When Shufeng saw the ruin before him and Auerbach's nonchalant demeanor, he was momentarily at a loss for words. Shufeng had seen Tier 6 God-ranked experts single-handedly destroy cities in the past. However, compared to the power displayed by those Tier 6 God-ranked experts, Auerbach's performance gave Shufeng a much greater shock. This was because Auerbach was only at Tier 4. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Originally, Shufeng thought that Auerbach's breath attack would, at most, deplete a significant portion of the defensive magic array's energy. Yet, the entire city had disappeared. He couldn't help looking at the crazed Beast Emperor apologetically. He even wanted to tell Beast Emperor that he hadn't done this on purpose. Of course, while Shufeng pitted Beast Emperor, he did not show the latter any mercy. Unsheathing the abyssal blade, he activated the Tier 4 Darkness Bind, binding Beast Emperor and the other surviving defenders. Now that ancient Rock City's defensive magic array was no more, Beast Emperor and the others were subject to the full power of Shufeng's mana domain. Without the ability to manipulate the ambient mana, Beast Emperor and the others were basically Tier 3 players with above-average basic attributes. Hence, they were utterly incapable of resisting Shufeng and got caught easily. And under the restraint of Darkness Bind, they couldn't die even if they wanted to. After Shufeng destroyed ancient Rock City and captured Beast Emperor and the others, news of this battle spread like wildfire across the entire God's domain. Chapter 2878. Ancient Rock City's Secret Fire Dragon Empire, Flame Dragon City, Mythology's Residence. A Tier 3 ranger barged into the meeting room occupied by Mythology's executives, earning the dissatisfaction of Situ Qingtian and the others in the room. Looking at the ranger, Situ Qingtian asked in a displeased tone, "Did something happen?" "It's news of Zero Wing," the ranger said hurriedly. "According to your orders, we've kept tabs on Zero Wing. However, just a moment ago, Zero Wing destroyed ancient Rock City." Upon hearing the ranger's words, Cold Shadow responded dubiously, "Impossible. It's only been around 10 minutes since Zero Wing arrived at ancient Rock City. Even if Black Flame is Tier 5, they can't possibly capture the city so quickly." Ancient Rock City was Beast Emperor's base, and the man had long since armed the city to the teeth. Beast Emperor also had the evil god's temple's backing, a powerful existence capable of going against the war god's temple. Although Shufeng was a Tier 5 player, capturing ancient Rock City should be tough. No. Vice Guild Leader, Zero Wing didn't capture ancient Rock City. It razed the entire city in one blow. Ancient Rock City is now a ruin. The ranger countered, shaking his head. He then took out a magic crystal recorder and placed it on the meeting table. "This is the battle video we received." Immediately, the magic crystal recorder projected the image of a dragon. With just one breath attack, this dragon leveled the entire ancient Rock City, leaving nothing unscathed. A Tier 4 divine dragon. It managed to destroy the entire ancient Rock City in one hit? Deathly silence enveloped the meeting room momentarily as Mythology's executives stared at the video projection with gloomy expressions. Shock and fear also surfaced in their eyes. Their astonishment was so obvious that even the reporting Tier 3 ranger could sense it. No wonder he dared refuse our two guilds' partnership. So this is the reason for his confidence. Cold Shadow looked at the Tier 4 Divine Dragon and the ruined ancient rock city in the video with complicated feelings. Xueqi had been a minor character unworthy of her attention in the past when Zero Wing was a guild reliant on external items to defend its territories. Yet, both Xueqi and Zero Wing were now bona fide titans that even mythology could not and would not dare to offend. What was even more laughable was that just a moment ago, mythology's executives had been discussing how to take revenge on Zero Wing in secret. Now, however, Black Flame. I indeed underestimated you before. Situ Qingtian's gaze grew cold as he looked at the video projection. Repressing the reluctance in his heart, he uttered slowly, temporarily halt all retaliation against Zero Wing we discussed before. Practically every superpower in God's domain had heard about Xueqi killing Situ Qingtian in Zero Wing City. Smiling, Xueqi said to Zero Wing's members, "They're even better than fragmented legendary items. Is there anyone here with concentration at the Tier 4 peak standard?" After Zero Wing's members exchanged glances, only Violet Cloud stepped forward. "Guild leader, my concentration reached the Tier 4 peak standard recently. However, the two vice guild leaders should have reached this standard too. Good. Take this soul stone. Afterward, find a quiet place and eat it. It should increase your concentration standard. If you're lucky, you might even raise it to Tier 5, Xueqi said as he handed one of the black stones to Violet Cloud. He then said to the others, "If anyone else manages to reach the Tier 4 peak standard, you can get this soul stone from me." The other Zero Wing members nodded their heads, none of them objecting to Xueqi's method of distribution. However, when Beast Emperor, who was restrained in a corner, saw Xueqi's actions, he dearly wanted to strangle Xueqi to death. Xueqi was actually treating the two Faux Saint Slayers' cores as a snack and letting others eat them. This was simply outrageous. He had fed the two Faux Saint Slayers the souls of tens of thousands of Tier 3 players to transform their cores into a soul core. So long as he had a soul core, he could create another Faux Saint Slayer. Yet, Violet Cloud received one of these soul cores as a snack. Black Flame. You'll pay for this. Beast Emperor bellowed as he glared at Xueqi. It doesn't matter even if you caught me. The evil god's temple's rise is already a foregone conclusion. At that time, the Faux Saint army will devour everyone from Zero Wing. Foregone conclusion? Xueqi laughed. Looking at the restrained Beast Emperor, he pointed at the ruined saint's hand residence in the distance and asked, "Are you talking about that secret land beneath your guild residence?" I don't know what you're talking about. Beast Emperor stammered in a panic. No need to pretend. Do you think Tier 5 is a joke? Xueqi rolled his eyes at Beast Emperor. While Ancient Rock City's defensive magic array was still active, Xueqi hadn't been able to sense the secret land's existence. However, with the defensive magic array gone, nothing in Ancient Rock City could hide from his Tier 5 world creation mana domain. Moreover, Xueqi had already been suspicious about how Beast Emperor had managed to develop Ancient Rock City to its current level. Zero Wing had poured an astronomical amount of resources into developing Stone Forest City and Zero Wing City. Yet, the two cities were still stuck as intermediate cities, far from becoming advanced cities. So, how did Ancient Rock City develop into an advanced city that was close to becoming a main city? Only a fool wouldn't suspect there was a secret behind this achievement. Black Flame. Beast Emperor was momentarily enraged at Xueqi's ridicule. However, he soon calmed down and said, "So what if you've discovered the evil god's secret land? Do you think you can defend it? Even if you've captured me, I will still spread this information to the entire god's domain. At that time, even the outer world forces will be drawn here. Do you think you can stop all of them?" The evil god's secret land was originally his biggest secret and something he had invested heavily in. This secret land was also why he had gained his current power. Although the evil god's secret land would be of significantly less help to those not belonging to the evil god's temple, the benefits were still enough to drive everyone in God's domain wild. How would I know if I don't try? Suddenly, Xueqi executed a slash at Furious Fist, instantly killing him. As Furious Fist collapsed reluctantly to the ground and transformed into countless particles of light, two items appeared in his place. Of the two items Furious Fist dropped, one was a piece of epic equipment, while the other was a token. You! Beast Emperor's complexion paled when he saw the token. This token was none other than Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token. With this token, one could take control of Ancient Rock City. Only, Beast Emperor couldn't figure out how Xueqi knew Furious Fist had held the City Lord's token. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Ew, it seems my luck is good. Xueqi was a little surprised when he saw the City Lord's token. It dropped on the first kill. Beast Emperor nearly fainted when he heard Xueqi's words. What Beast Emperor didn't know was that aside from Beast Emperor, everyone else held no value as prisoners in Xueqi's opinion. Meanwhile, the City Lord's token couldn't be taken out of the city. Otherwise, it would be automatically teleported back to the City Lord's mansion after some time. And with how precious the City Lord's token was, Beast Emperor naturally wouldn't leave it to just anyone. The person holding the token would have to be a Tier 4 guild executive of Saint's Hand at the very least. Hence, if Furious Fist hadn't dropped the City Lord's token, Xueqi would have killed Saint's Hand's Tier 4 experts one by one until it dropped. The instant Xueqi picked up the City Lord's token, a system notification rang in his ears. Chapter 2879. Colossal Wealth System. Congratulations! You have obtained Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token. Do you wish to bind the token? Once bound, you will become Ancient Rock City's ruler and obtain full authority over the city. Xueqi chose to bind the token without hesitation. System. Binding in progress. You will have full authority over Ancient Rock City after 4 hours. You should not move beyond 1,000 yards from the city during these 4 hours. If you leave this area or get killed during this time, the binding process will be cancelled, and you may not make another binding attempt for 1 natural day. CES 4 hours? Xueqi was a little surprised by the notification. Has it reached the main city standard already? When one tried to bind the City Lord's token of a guild city, the binding time would depend on the city's rank. Main city-level guild cities normally took 4 to 6 hours to bind. Guild leader, did something happen? Fire Dance asked when she saw Xueqi's strange expression. It's nothing. I just didn't expect Ancient Rock City to be this special, Xueqi said, glancing at the raging Beast Emperor. Smiling, he continued, since we have to wait for 4 hours, let's pay that evil god's secret land a visit. Black Flame, don't get too delighted just yet. It's useless even if you've obtained Ancient Rock City. That secret land isn't a place you can touch. Without my means of entering, you can't obtain anything inside that secret land. Beast Emperor sneered. I'll spread the secret land's entry methods to all your enemies and even those outer world people. At that time, you can only watch as they take all of the secret land's treasures right before your eyes. Zero Wing could indeed better defend itself after acquiring Ancient Rock City. However, Beast Emperor also knew very well that the Outer World forces had already deemed Zero Wing an eyesore. Once the Outer World's army arrived, neither Star Moon Kingdom nor the Orc Empire would survive. At that time, the Outer World forces would snatch the evil god's secret land from Xueqi, and Xueqi would be helpless to resist them. However, Xueqi ignored Beast Emperor and led Zero Wing's members to Saint's Hand's residence. Although Ancient Rock City was now in ruins and Saint's Hand's residence had been leveled, the guild warehouse was situated on the first underground floor, so Saint's Hand's guild warehouse remained intact. After Xueqi's group took care of the one Tier 4 NPC and several Tier 3 NPCs guarding the warehouse, they gained full access to it. Everyone from Zero Wing salivated when they stepped into Saint's Hand's guild warehouse. The warehouse, which was the size of 2 sports stadiums, was packed with all sorts of items. Gold coins covered the floor, and magic crystals formed numerous mounds. At a glance, they estimated it held at least 3 million gold coins and 4 million magic crystals. This stockpile of magic crystals was only slightly inferior to Zero Wing's. We're rich! Guild leader, we're rich! Fire Dance exclaimed in excitement as she looked around the warehouse. With all these coins and magic crystals, we won't have to worry about upgrading the buildings of our cities anymore. Zero Wing City's public opening had indeed generated a lot of additional income. Unfortunately, the guild's expenditure still exceeded that amount. This was because Zero Wing City's public opening necessitated an increase in the city's security. The city had to recruit many NPC soldiers to fill as many of the 30,000 slots as possible. While Zero Wing could skim on the benefits provided to the hired soldiers by virtue of Zero Wing City being a main city, the cost of employing level 150 plus, Tier 3 NPCs was still high. With everything taken into account, maintaining a Tier 3 NPC cost 5 gold coins. If Zero Wing City filled all 30,000 of its soldier slots with Tier 3 NPCs, the NPC soldiers' daily upkeep alone would total 150,000 gold. Moreover, this still did not include the NPCs' weapons and equipment or the maintenance cost for the Tier 4 NPCs hired. Simply put, Zero Wing's daily expenditure had skyrocketed after Zero Wing City's public opening. At this time, the guild's stockpile of coins was close to empty. Fortunately, thanks to Saint's Hand's contribution, Zero Wing's warehouse would soon be rich again. Seeing Fire Dance's joy, Xueqi chose to hide the fact that Ancient Rock City's reconstruction would probably eat up all of this money. Zero Wing might even need to provide additional funds. Guild leader, come here quick. There are 7 luminaries crystals here. Blackie said after opening a chest as tall as he was. With glittering eyes he continued. There are at least 50,000 units here. That's even more than what we have. Before Xueqi left for the Western continent, he had tasked Blackie with acquiring as many 7 luminaries crystals as possible. Hence, Blackie placed particular importance on the crystals. However, Zero Wing's warehouse currently had only around 30,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal despite his efforts. And if it weren't for Zero Wing having a monopoly over the Arctic Canyon, this amount would be even lower. Yet, Saint's Hand's warehouse had more than 50,000 units of 7 luminaries crystal. That's nothing. Blackie, come over to my spot. I'll let you know what real wealth is. Shouted Cola, who stood in another corner of the warehouse, as he pointed at the several hill-sized chests beside him. All of these chests here are full of epic materials or above. From what I can tell, there are at least 300,000 epic materials, 20,000 inferior legendary materials, and 3,000 legendary materials. Everyone, including Xueqi, was stunned when they heard Cola's words. This was on the level of a kingdom's treasury. Ordinary kingdoms might not even reach this standard. Chapter 2880. God Mode Secret Land, what bold words! I want to see just how far you can go. Beast Emperor watched with ridicule and complacency as Xueqi entered the secret room. He was fully confident that the evil god's secret land would repel Xueqi. However, after Xueqi entered the room, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Apparently unhindered by the oppression the pitch-black door exerted, Xueqi advanced 20 steps without stopping. He showed no signs of discomfort whatsoever. It was as if the pressure that rendered even experts at the peak of Tier 4 helpless was nothing to him. Confusion flooded Beast Emperor's heart as he looked at Xueqi. What's going on? When Xueqi arrived before the pitch-black door, let alone Beast Emperor, even Fire Dance and the others were stunned. How did you do it, guild leader? Fire Dance asked, unable to contain her curiosity. The intensity of the pressure she felt from the secret room was unprecedented. Even the divine might she experienced in Lightforged City could not compare. After taking 3 steps into the room, she could no longer advance by even another inch. She couldn't even lift her feet. While Tier 5 players were indeed stronger than Tier 4 players, the disparity shouldn't be so significant. Logically, there was no way Xueqi would remain unaffected by the room's oppression. At Fire Dance's question, the other Zero Wing members also looked at Xueqi curiously. How did I do it? Seeing everyone's curious expressions, Xueqi smiled faintly and said, I just walked here of course. However, I did use a little technique. Technique? The Zero Wing members were momentarily stunned. They hadn't seen anything peculiar about Xueqi's gait. He had merely walked to the door in a normal fashion. Moreover, how could a technique completely mitigate such terrifying pressure? However, when Beast Emperor heard Xueqi's words, he stared at the latter as if he had just seen a ghost. No. Impossible. Who are you? How can you know such a technique? There was indeed a trick to approaching the pitch-black door. However, Beast Emperor had never told anyone this trick. He was the only player in God's domain who knew it. Moreover, even if one knew the trick, one still couldn't approach the door without the evil god's blessing. Xueqi couldn't help rolling his eyes at Beast Emperor. The technique required to approach this door is indeed complicated. But do you think the fundamental technique to manipulate the various elements of mana is unique to the evil god's temple? When Feng saw the pitch-black door and the hurdle fire dance and the others faced after entering the secret room, he quickly noticed a similarity between the secret room and the Dragon Temple's trial area. In the Dragon Temple's trial, players had to construct a bridge using mana's various elements. The secret room, on the other hand, was filled with chaotic mana. The closer to the pitch-black door, the more chaotic the ambient mana was. What players needed to do was return this chaotic mana to its original state. Only by doing so could players approach the door. Simply put, both places tested players' usage of the various elements of mana. For Feng, who had already mastered the basic usage of the various elements of mana, approaching the pitch-black door was a walk in the park. It was much easier than the trial in the Dragon Temple, which had required him to expend a lot of concentration and manipulate a significant amount of mana. The secret room, on the other hand, did not put a burden on his concentration or require him to manipulate a lot of mana. The secret land aside, this room is quite a good training spot for those seeking to learn the basic usage of the various elements of mana. Scrutinizing the secret room, Feng said happily, "I was worrying about how to help everyone accomplish this, so this saves me a lot of time." It wasn't easy to learn to manipulate the various elements of mana independently. Even if he provided Zero Wings members with an explanation, the learning process would be highly inefficient without a reference. They could be taking a dead end for all they knew. The secret room just so happened to provide players with an environment for testing their application of the various elements of mana. It was undoubtedly a precious training ground. One would also have an easier time getting promoted to Tier 5 if they trained here, as having the ability to manipulate the individual elements of mana was crucial in constructing a Tier 5 mana body. When Beast Emperor heard Feng's words, he promptly fainted. Ignoring the unconscious Beast Emperor, Feng set his sights on the pitch-black door. The door was 5 meters tall and 2 meters wide, made of a material Feng didn't recognize. When he opened the door, a pitch-black whirlpool greeted him. The vortex exuded divine might, and players at Tier 4 or below shouldn't even think of setting foot into this whirlpool. After Feng inspected the whirlpool with omniscient eyes, a few lines of information appeared before him. Evil God Secret Land. God Mode Secret Land Raid Level 150 to 200. What a powerful secret land. The displayed information astonished Feng. Now, he understood why Beast Emperor was confident he couldn't obtain the Evil God Secret Land. Secret lands were like dungeons in God's domain. The higher their ranking, the higher their raid difficulty. God Mode was the highest difficulty for secret lands. Unlike dungeons though, secret lands would not reset. According to Feng's memories, there were less than 10 level 150 plus God Mode secret lands in the entire God's domain. Meanwhile, even Tier 6 God-ranked experts could fall in a level 150 plus God Mode secret land. However, countless player forces would seek to enter a level 150 plus God Mode secret land. It was also a place all Tier 5 players had to enter. This was because these secret lands held clues to the Tier 6 promotion. Which player who had climbed to Tier 5 wouldn't wish to advance further and reach Tier 6? Hence, God's domain's various forces would fight over any level 150 plus God Mode secret land that appeared. It seems I'll now have to defend Ancient Rock City, no matter what. Feng sighed as he looked at the Evil God's secret land. Due to the Outer World Forces invasion, he had intended to defend Ancient Rock City only temporarily. After all, Zero Wing had limited combat power. In its current state, just defending the guild cities it already had from the Outer Worlds player and NPC forces would be difficult. Adding Ancient Rock City to the list would only make things even more difficult for the guild. However, the Evil God's secret land was extraordinary. Feng might have ignored it if it were only an Azura mode secret land, but a level 150 plus God Mode secret land was something he had to protect at all costs. After all, finding another secret land of such caliber wouldn't be easy, even for him. The entrances of level 150 plus God Mode secret lands typically appeared at random locations and existed for only a set period. Thus, none of the superpowers in his previous life had ever managed to occupy a level 150 plus God Mode secret land. On the other hand, the entrance to the Evil God's secret land in Ancient Rock City was fixed. This increased the entrance's value drastically. Moreover, this Evil God's secret land might very well hold the key to Feng's promotion to Tier 6. Read latest chapters at Xueqi World. Following this, Zero Wing's logistics members began ransacking Saint's Hand's warehouse, while Xueqi taught fire dance and the others the fundamental technique to manipulate mana's various elements. Like so, 4 hours went by in the blink of an eye, and Xueqi received a notification. System. Congratulations! You have become Ancient Rock City's ruler. Do you wish to reconstruct Ancient Rock City? Reconstruct. Xueqi said in a determined tone. System. A God mode secret land has been discovered. Do you wish to integrate the secret land with Ancient Rock City? Chapter 2881. Integration Integrate. Xueqi grew confused as he read the system notification. This was the first time he had heard of a secret land being integrated with a guild city. He had seen many player forces constructing guild cities on top of precious secret lands in the past. However, even as these guild cities developed, they never received any opportunity to merge with these secret lands directly. For a moment, Xueqi hesitated. The Evil God secret land was a level 150+ God mode secret land. If he recklessly merged it with Ancient Rock City and the secret land disappeared, he would suffer a huge loss. However, before Xueqi could ponder things further, he received another system notification. System. It is detected that you have 3 million magic crystals and 5,007 luminaries crystals on your person. You have fulfilled the conditions to reconstruct Ancient Rock City with the Evil God secret land as the core. Do you wish to integrate the secret land and upgrade the city? Agree. Xueqi agreed without hesitation when he heard the contents of the notification. There were several holy cities in God's domain, and one of these holy cities had a God mode secret land as its core. The War God's Temple had also established its main headquarters in this holy city. Sanctuary. This sacred place was also why all Tier 5 experts sought to visit the top of the world. Sanctuary was the sole ancient city in God's domain that players had verified to hold clues to the Tier 6 promotion. The city was so old that nobody could ascertain its age in this modern day. Rumor had it that any Tier 4 player that entered Sanctuary had a 100% chance of getting promoted to Tier 5. However, what made Sanctuary amazing wasn't the knowledge it stored. Instead, the holy city held complete control over a level 150+ God mode secret land. Players that gained sufficient authority in the city, even Tier 3 players, could enter the secret land. It was different from the God mode secret lands found in the outside world, where the minimum entry requirement was Tier 4 because of the suppression of divine might. Although great dangers existed in a God mode secret land, they weren't everywhere. Moreover, the environment inside level 150+ God mode secret lands was different from the outside world, resembling that of ancient times, the era abounding with gods. Hence, entering a God mode secret land was an excellent opportunity even for low-tier players. Now that Ancient Rock City could become another sanctuary, how could Xueqi possibly turn down this opportunity? After Xueqi voiced his approval, some of the magic crystals and 7 luminaries crystals he had acquired from Saint's Hand's warehouse vanished from his bag space. Simultaneously, Ancient Rock City shook briefly. Ancient Rock City Region System Announcement. Ancient Rock City will commence with an upgrade. All players within Ancient Rock City will be teleported out of the city in 10 minutes. Players within the city are advised to make the necessary preparations. The system announcement echoed 3 times throughout the region. Subsequently, Xueqi received a personal system notification. System. Ancient Rock City's upgrade is estimated to take 1 natural day. As you hold Ancient Rock City's City Lord's token, you may not move more than 3,000 yards away from the city. You can also choose to log off and rest. Why is it so long? Xueqi was rendered speechless by the notification. A guild city's upgrade would typically take only several hours. Nevertheless, Ancient Rock City needed 1 day for its advancement. By the time the city was ready, Beast Emperor would have long since spread the Evil God secret lands information to all of God's domain. And worse, Ancient Rock City would be at its weakest after the reconstruction and upgrade process. Before the system's first major update, guild cities got a grace period whenever they underwent an upgrade. Now, guild cities no longer received that benefit. Players had to defend their cities on their own. If the outer world forces were determined, Ancient Rock City might be greeted with a battle as soon as its reconstruction ended. At this time, Fire Dance looked toward Xueqi and asked, "Guild leader, we've emptied Saint's Hand's warehouse already. Should we retreat now?" No, bring Beast Emperor and the other captives back to Silverwing City first, Xuefeng replied, shaking his head. Also, have Liang Jing gather the necessary manpower in Silverwing City ahead of time. As soon as Ancient Rock City opens, have them garrison the city immediately. Yes, sir. Upon hearing Xuefeng's words, Fire Dance understood that trouble would accompany Ancient Rock City's promotion. There might even be a big battle awaiting the city. She immediately set out to execute his orders. After Fire Dance left Ancient Rock City, Xuefeng chose to log off and rest. He had been busy with various tasks previously, so he hadn't had a chance to take a break from the game. Now that the system had prohibited him from leaving Ancient Rock City's vicinity, he could use this opportunity to rest up. Yuantian City's upper zone, 6th Southern District. The Fearless Cabin's hatch opened slowly, and Xuefeng climbed out of the gaming cabin. The instant Xuefeng exited the cabin, dizziness assaulted him. He very nearly fell back into the cabin. What's going on? As the world spun before him, Xuefeng felt an indescribable hunger. Confused, he wondered, are my mind and body failing to adapt because I spent too much time in the Dragon Temple? However, Xuefeng dared not ponder on this matter for too long because he knew there was only one thing he needed to do right now. Eat. He had experienced this hunger once before, so he knew that his anemic symptoms resulted from his body lacking energy. Fortunately, Xuefeng had prepared for such situations. After Zero Wing partnered with the Boulder Corporation, the latter had given Zero Wing 30 bottles of life potion. Xuefeng had distributed most of them to Zero Wing's executives but kept 5 for himself as a precaution. This situation was precisely when he needed to use those life potions. Xuefeng emptied 2 bottles of life potion in the blink of an eye. However, although the anemic symptoms he suffered eased, his mind and body still lacked energy. Only after downing the 5th bottle did Xuefeng feel himself reviving. Thank goodness I prepared 5 bottles. I wouldn't have recovered from this predicament with only 4. Xuefeng couldn't help sighing deeply as he looked at the empty bottles in front of him. These 5 bottles of life potion should have lasted him 2 months. Now, he had finished all 5 in one fell swoop. If Mushin and Kurue found out about this, they would have a heart attack. After all, this was half a year's worth of provisions for them. However, while Xuefeng felt heartache over the consumption, he also felt completely reinvigorated. His physical fitness, mental strength, perception, and physical aspects had undergone tremendous growth. Now, even with both eyes closed, he could still perceive the outline of his room. He could even sense the life force of those in the entire building block if he concentrated. This was simply unbelievable. Could I have become a mental strength master already? This thought occurred to Xuefeng when he detected the life force of others in the building. He couldn't think of any other explanation for this change. Only the rumored mental strength masters might have such an ability. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU at this time, even his view of the world had changed. After Xuefeng immersed himself in this experience for a dozen minutes, he smiled. Although I don't know if I've become a mental strength master or not, with my current standard, I shouldn't have to worry about the mental strength master backing Lu Tiandi. Thinking up to this point, Xuefeng tidied up himself and left his house. He planned to visit the 5 States Corporation's mansion to replenish the resources necessary for both his and Zero Wing's development. Previously, he had been worried about Lu Tiandi's mentor targeting him, so he hadn't dared to venture too far from his residential area. Now that his strength had improved significantly, he naturally didn't have to hold back anymore. He could do his tasks without worry. Chapter 2882. Upper Zone Transaction. When Xuefeng exited his home and looked at the surrounding streets and buildings, a faint smile appeared on his face. How generous. He actually sent over a dozen half-step grandmasters to keep an eye on me. He had been living in the Upper Zone for quite some time now. After getting more information from Mushin, he more or less understood the general situation in the Upper Zone. While master-level experts could be found everywhere, experts at the half-step grandmaster level were even in the Upper Zone. They were the mainstays of the various Upper Zone organizations. Normally, only the direct successors of a corporation would qualify to have an expert of such caliber accompany them. Typically, only a first-rate corporation operating in the Upper Zone would have more than a dozen half-step grandmasters under its command. However, Xuefeng did not pay much attention to the experts trailing him. Behaving as if he never noticed them, He made his way toward the mansion area with a smile. Butler, that kid clearly noticed us, yet he doesn't seem to care about us for some reason, a black-clad, middle-aged man standing on the rooftop of an apartment said as he looked at Xueqi's departing back. He then turned to Xueqi, who stood beside him, and asked, "Does he have some kind of backing?" The Infinity Master Fu Jiuzhong had been thoroughly enraged when he learned of his student Wang Xuanming's expulsion from the upper zone. Afterward, he had requested the elders of the several families in his debt to keep an eye on Xueqi. And if the opportunity presented itself, they were to get rid of Xueqi. Naturally, the elders of the requested families were more than willing to sell Fu Jiuzhong this favor. After all, according to their investigations, Xueqi had no background. He had managed to get into the upper zone only because of the Boulder Corporation's Hong Xing Yuan. The only noteworthy thing about him was some achievements in God's domain. In response to the black-clad man's question, Xueqi shook his head and said, "From what I know, apart from the Boulder Corporation, his only other connection in the upper zone is General Manager Xia. However, her interest in him hasn't reached a level where she is willing to make an enemy of us for his sake. He might be ignoring us now because of the strengthened security around him. If that's the case, this kid's days are numbered," the middle-aged man said as he looked coldly at Xueqi's distant figure. In a duel between two grandmasters, it would indeed be difficult to decide the match's outcome within a short time. However, their side had 6 half-step Honglian grandmasters and 8 grandmasters. 3 of the 8 grandmasters were even bona fide Honglian grandmasters. If they worked together, even an expert like Wang Xianming would fall quickly and have no opportunity to escape. "In that case, I'll leave the rest to you all, Elder Qi. I will wait here for your good news," Xueqi said respectfully to the black-clad middle-aged man. Elder Qi was the elder of a first-rate corporation. Although he could no longer improve due to his old age, he was still a Honglian grandmaster. His strength even surpassed Wang Xuanming slightly. If not for Fu Jiuzhong, Elder Qi wouldn't have paid any attention to the Starline Corporation whatsoever. "No problem. Leave it to us. Once we get an opportunity, we'll cripple him," Elder Qi said as he stroked his beard. "We'll teach this kid that he can't offend just anyone he wants in the upper zone." The upper zone was indeed a safe place, as even mental strength masters wouldn't dare take a life here. Otherwise, the Green God Company would investigate the matter. Even a mental strength master shouldn't think of continuing their days in the upper zone at that time, because this was the Green God Company's bottom line. However, teaching someone a lesson or crippling them was a different story. If the Green God Company did not catch the culprit red-handed, it would turn a blind eye to the matter. After all, so long as a person was alive, the Green God Company could let them make a full recovery within a short time with their technology. After saying so, Elder Qi began tailing Xueqi, together with the other experts. Upper Zone, Mansion District. After strolling in the Mansion District for half an hour, Xueqi arrived in front of a 3-story mansion that occupied an area equivalent to 4 basketball courts. As expected of the 5 States Corporation, there are only 10 such mansions in this district. Even the Boulder Corporation didn't manage to get one. No wonder Han Yifeng dares to compete for one of the middle-layer slots. Xueqi couldn't help his surprise as he inspected the luxurious mansion before him. He had seen the pricing for such large mansions. Not only did it cost 140 million trade points, but one also had to have 100 million contribution points. While one wouldn't be required to spend the 100 million contribution points, accumulating that many points was an incredibly difficult task. Meanwhile, such large mansions were much better than the average mansion. Apart from offering more space, these mansions also stood closer to the waist of the mountain. In the base layer, they were the closest buildings to the middle layer. Hence, the mysterious energy filling the environment here was much denser than in other places. After Xueqi took a deep breath here, his mind already felt refreshed. He felt as if he had set foot into paradise on earth. Shortly after Xueqi pressed the doorbell, the tightly shut metal gate opened, and a person walked out. This person was none other than Xueqi, Han Yifeng's butler. Looking at Xueqi, Xueqi asked, "Mr. Xue, may I know what business you have with us today?" "It's about the agreement young Master Han and I made," Xueqi replied calmly. "As per our agreement, I have come to do business with young Master Han." "Business? Please follow me." Xueqi nodded and led Xueqi into the mansion. When Xueqi entered the mansion, He immediately noticed several young men and women training under an elderly man in the mansion's outdoor training ground. The elderly man wore a martial arts robe. Although he had a head of white hair, the aura he exuded was more powerful than what Shifeng had sensed from Wang Xianming previously. Upon Shifeng's arrival, the young men and women turned to look at him curiously, wondering who Shifeng was for the Five States Corporation to treat him as a guest. However, after getting berated by their elderly instructor, they promptly focused on their training again. It seems I really can't underestimate the Five States Corporation. Shifeng was surprised when he spread his senses across the mansion. There are 6 grandmasters and more than 10 half-step grandmasters in this mansion alone. Even the Boulder Corporation doesn't have this many experts. After guiding Shifeng to a reception room on the 3rd floor, Xueqi pushed apart the wooden doors to the room and said, "Mr. Shi, the young master is waiting inside." Shifeng nodded and walked into the room. He found Han Yifeng seated behind a solid wood desk with his eyes closed. Currently, Han Yifeng did not exude the slightest bit of aura and felt no different from an ordinary person. Compared to the last time Shifeng had met him, Han Yifeng's aura had changed dramatically. Upon sensing Shifeng's arrival, Han Yifeng opened his eyes. Revealing a faint smile, Han Yifeng said, "Brother Shi, I didn't think you would come to find me so soon. I expected you would wait for the last 10 days to get a better price." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. At this point, Shifeng's name was already known throughout Yuantian City's upper zone. Not only was he the cause of Wang Xuanming's banishment from the upper zone, but he was even Zero Wings Guild leader. The resources he had on hand tempted many of the corporations participating in this season's contribution competition. If not for Wang Xuanming's teacher, Fu Jiuzhong, many of the corporations based in Yuantian City's upper zone would have long since visited Shifeng and proposed a partnership. I doubt that will happen. I know I am not your only source of contribution points, young Master Han. Had I waited until the last moment, I probably would have gotten a lower price instead. You might not even have wanted my points at that time, Shifeng said, shaking his head. Originally, Shifeng had indeed considered waiting for a better price. Now though, he couldn't afford the delay. Zero Wing urgently needed a large amount of resources, especially life potions. The life potion was the perfect drug to improve one's physical fitness. If not for the limitation of physical fitness, Fire Dance, Lei Bao, and several other people in Zero Wing would have long since become neutralizing grandmasters. Brother Shi, you jest. In that case, we'll proceed with the 2-to-1 ratio we previously agreed on. I'll buy however many points you have, Han Yifeng said, chuckling. However, Shifeng shook his head and countered in a determined voice, "No, I want a 1-to-1 ratio." Chapter 2883. Overnight Fortune 1-to-1. Han Yifeng frowned. Brother Shi, isn't your asking price a little too high? At this time, Han Yifeng wasn't the only one dissatisfied. Standing by the door, Xueqi looked at Shifeng with a hint of anger and ridicule in his eyes. A 1-to-1 exchange ratio was something no organization operating in Yuantian City's upper zone would accept. Life potions and phantom potions served as an organization's foundation. Their stockpile was also something accumulated over many years. These potions weren't items that one could obtain on a whim. Yet, Shifeng wanted to purchase these precious potions at a 1-to-1 exchange rate. Did he take the Five States Corporation for a fool? The Five States Corporation had many sources for contribution points. Meanwhile, these sources only sought a 2-to-1 ratio. On what basis was Shifeng asking for a 1-to-1 ratio? Young Master Han, don't be in a hurry to refuse, Shifeng said, smiling as he looked at Han Yifeng's cold expression. A 1-to-1 ratio is a fair price. A fair price. Han Yifeng laughed. May I know how you think it is fair, Brother Shi? Because I can guarantee you a slot to enter the middle layer, young Master Han. Shifeng said confidently. Do you think this is a fair deal now? At Shifeng's words, Han Yifeng's cold expression changed slightly. However, he quickly recollected himself and asked, "Those are some confident words, Brother Shi. If what you say is true, I can consider a 1-to-1 ratio. May I know what exactly you are counting on to help me?" 600,000 contribution points. That, combined with the points you already have. While I don't know if you can secure first place, getting within the top 3 shouldn't be a problem, right? According to Mushin's information, the top 3 rankers limit should be around 1 million contribution points. It would be difficult for them to acquire more than this because one could earn only so many contribution points through real-world resources. The only other way these top rankers could acquire more points would be to obtain many 7 Luminaries crystals in God's domain. However, 7 Luminaries crystals were incredibly precious in God's domain, and even the various superpowers barely had any. B. Xueqi estimated that acquiring 800,000 contribution points shouldn't be a problem for the 5 States Corporation. If the corporation included his 600,000 points, it could secure one of the top 3 spots with a 100% certainty. When Xueqi finished speaking, Xueqi couldn't help staring at Xueqi in disbelief, his eyes very nearly falling out of their sockets. Each of the 5 States Corporation's point sources could contribute only several tens of thousands of contribution points. After totaling the points from all sources, the corporation should gain around 600,000 contribution points. Not to mention, these sources would not necessarily sell all their points to the 5 States Corporation. After all, the upper zone's various organizations were purchasing contribution points at a high price. The 5 States Corporation would be fortunate if it could acquire 400,000 contribution points in the end. However, if the corporation could gain an additional 600,000 contribution points now, it could secure one of the top 3 spots in the competition. At this time, even Han Yifeng was visibly moved. 600,000. He has this much strength? In Han Yifeng's opinion, taking out 200,000 contribution points would be plenty impressive already. After all, 7 Luminaries crystals were not easy to acquire in God's domain. Xueqi had even traded some with him already. With 600,000 contribution points as his base, Xueqi could even try to fight for one of the top 3 positions himself. Xueqi smiled when he saw Han Yifeng's reaction. He then asked, "What do you think, young Master Han?" If Han Yifeng had 1 million contribution points as his base, all he needed to do next was acquire another 300,000 points or so to solidify his victory. After pondering for a moment, Han Yifeng gritted his teeth and said, "That is indeed sufficient qualification. However, a 1-to-1 ratio is still too much. The 5 States Corporation can't take out so many potions in a short time. If converted to trade points, 600,000 contribution points would be worth 60 million trade points. And when converted to life potions, that would be equivalent to 12,000 life potions. This was by no means a trifling amount." Xueqi didn't find Han Yifeng's words surprising, either. Instead, he chuckled and said, "If that's the case, how about this? I'll only ask for 2,000 potions. I'll exchange the remainder for a large mansion in the upper zone. What do you think? I recall that the 5 States Corporation still has the authority to purchase another one." The base layer had only 10 large mansions, and only 8 had owners. After some research, Xueqi found that these large mansions were excellent accommodations. Not only could they house 40 people easily, but the strange energy in the air was also much denser in these large mansions. This denser energy would be of greater help in stabilizing Gentle Snow and Aqua Rose's condition. "Xueqi, don't go too far," Xueqi blurted angrily. "A 1-to-1 ratio is already an astronomical price. Yet, you're asking for a large mansion that's worth 140 million trade points? Do you take the 5 States Corporation for a fool?" The value of 10,000 life potions was equivalent to only 50 million trade points, a little more than 1/3 of a large mansion's value. Xueqi's terms were no different from daylight robbery. "My asking price is indeed a little excessive, but purchasing a large mansion doesn't require you to spend contribution points. You only need to have accumulated 100 million contribution points." Gazing through the window at the distant middle layer with eyes burning with zeal, Han Yifeng said, "Head out and purchase contribution points from those organizations immediately. It doesn't matter even if you have to offer them a 1-5-to-1 ratio." While Han Yifeng was secretly going around purchasing contribution points from various organizations, Xueqi left the upper zone together with his crate of life potions. Previously, despite receiving the secret pavilions and Netherworld Empire's guild legacies, Zero Wing could afford to nurture only a small number of experts due to its limited resources. However, now that Zero Wing had sufficient life potions, let alone Void Realm experts, the guild could nurture even Domain Realm experts within a short time. This was something even the various superpowers couldn't accomplish. After all, when nurturing new talents, the superpowers would provide only S-rank nutrient fluids at most, not something as precious as the life potion. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. Meanwhile, when Shifeng left the upper zone, Elder Qi and the others stalking him were stunned. Is this kid crazy? A Honglian grandmaster asked when he saw Shifeng entering the mental path. He dares to leave the upper zone at this time? Could it be that he didn't notice us in the first place? A lanky neutralizing grandmaster wondered. There's no way he hasn't noticed us. I am certain on this point, Elder Qi declared. Looking at Shifeng's distant figure coldly, he continued. He's looking down on us. Since he's so arrogant, I'll fulfill his wish. Everyone, get ready to take action outside. I want to see what ability this kid has. After saying so, Elder Qi promptly set off after Shifeng. The other experts followed Elder Qi after briefly exchanging looks with one another. Chapter 2884. Ruthless Shifeng. Fenglin City, Zero Wings Headquarters. Shifeng stood in front of Zero Wings headquarters. The place had undergone significant changes since his last visit. Currently, people crowded the plaza in front of the building. Many of them young men and women. These people were either waiting to enter the building or taking various tests out in the plaza. This prosperous sight was even more spectacular than what could be found at the various super guilds' headquarters. As Shifeng made his way to the entrance, he overheard these young men and women discussing Zero Wings matters. As they spoke about Zero Wing City's training environment or the heaven-defying battle that had taken place at Ancient Rock City, their eyes glowed with anticipation. Before Shifeng could reach the entrance, a long-haired man in his 30s approached him. Looking at Shifeng, who was clad in sportswear, the long-haired man said in a friendly tone, "Friend, you're here to join Zero Wing, right?" "Me? Join Zero Wing?" Shifeng was stunned by the long-haired man's words. Although the long-haired man looked ordinary, Shifeng sensed intense life force from him. In terms of physical fitness, the long-haired man could practically rival Honglian masters. However, before Shifeng could say anything, the long-haired man unzipped his jacket and revealed a six-winged emblem pinned on his t-shirt, proving that he was an internal member of Zero Wing. "I can tell that you're extraordinary at a glance, brother," the long-haired man said while showing off his emblem. He then pointed at the long line of people waiting to enter the building and grinned, saying, "Look at how long that line is. If you grab a ticket and join the line now, it'll take you forever before your turn arrives. However, I'm an internal member of Zero Wing. I have a recommendation slot that lets me help one person bypass the initial test." "What are you trying to say?" Shifeng asked curiously. "I can see that you're extraordinary, so I plan to recommend you to the guild. However, once you become an internal member of Zero Wing, you'll need to join my team. What do you think?" Looking at Shifeng with a serious look, the long-haired man said earnestly, "The team I belong to is extraordinary. Although it was established only recently, it has become a second-line team already. It's only one line behind the main force." Shifeng was at a loss for words. He never imagined such competition existed between Zero Wing's various teams. If he weren't Zero Wing's guild leader, he would have most likely been tempted by the long-haired man's words already. After all, apart from Zero Wing's main force, any other team that had a Tier 4 player leading it would be considered a second-line team. Meanwhile, all second-line teams could raid level 150, 100-man hard-mode team dungeons. "What? You don't believe me?" Upon seeing Shifeng's startled expression, the long-haired man said delightedly, "Do you know who my team leader is? You'll get a fright if I tell you." Just when Shifeng wondered who this strange man's team leader was, the sounds of fighting came from inside the lobby. The din was like a sledgehammer pounding the ground. However, neither the long-haired man nor the other Zero Wing members present showed any concern over these loud sounds, appearing wholly accustomed to them. The newcomers, though, all expressed curiosity and tried sneaking peeks into the lobby. "Ignore that. It's nothing to fuss about," the long-haired man said when he saw the curiosity on Shifeng's face. He then added nonchalantly, "It's just the experts of another superpower coming to provoke Zero Wing. I believe Master Lei Bao will take care of them in a moment." Shifeng asked, "Have there been a lot of such situations happening in Zero Wing lately?" It's been like this since before I joined. However, it's become much more frequent recently, the long-haired man said as he nodded in frustration. These superpowers can't bear to see Zero Wing developing. However, as they can't do anything to us in God's domain, they keep coming to our headquarters to make trouble. They keep asking us to sell them Zero Wing City's lands. I heard that the group that came here this time consists of 6 superpowers, one of them the Super Guild Mythology. Mythology's group is even led by the Feng family's young lady. That Feng Shihan really is something. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also frighteningly strong. She can take down master-level experts in practically one hit. I'm afraid only our big sis Fire Dance can take her on. The long-haired man shuddered when he spoke of Feng Shihan. It was evident he feared the latter greatly. After the long-haired man finished speaking, the lobby's door opened abruptly, and a group of people stalked out of the building. These people were representatives of superpowers, and they currently had angry expressions. However, when they looked at Fire Dance and Lei Bao, who walked out of the building shortly after them, and then looked at the injured master-level experts and one half-step neutralizing grandmaster beside them, they dared not do anything. Just you wait. Don't think that, just because we are helpless against you in God's domain, you'll be invincible in the real world as well. Zero Wing will only encounter more trouble for refusing to cooperate with us. The various superpowers representatives barked arrogantly at Fire Dance and Lei Bao, their voices growing complacent as they spoke. While master-level experts might be powerless against Zero Wing, there were bound to be superpowers capable of inviting grandmaster-level experts to move for them. The corporations operating within the upper zone might even take action. After all, Zero Wing was too large a cake to pass on. According to the information the various superpowers had gathered, some forces based in the upper zone were already investigating Zero Wing, evidently interested in the guild. Hence, it was only a matter of time before Grandmaster-level experts came to find trouble with Zero Wing. Fire Dance and Lei Bao revealed somewhat grim expressions on their faces when they heard the representative's words. They had expected the battle at Ancient Rock City to have caught the attention of many organizations in the upper zone. Hence, they were certain that Grandmaster-level experts would eventually come to Zero Wing seeking trouble. While these Grandmasters might not be capable of doing anything against Zero Wing on the surface, if they came every day to pick a fight, it would ruin Zero Wing's reputation, not to mention the other unscrupulous tactics they could employ. However, when the various superpowers representatives were getting full of themselves, Feng Shihan suddenly left the group and headed toward Shifeng. The cold gaze she directed at him made the temperature in the surroundings fall by more than 10 degrees. The long-haired man standing beside Shifeng shuddered in fear despite himself. Looking at Shifeng, the long-haired man asked, "Friend, did you offend her in some way before? Why do I get the feeling that she's coming for you?" In this situation, the nearby young men also looked at Shifeng and began a quiet discussion. They all wondered who Shifeng was to warrant such attention from a great beauty like Feng Shihan. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. I don't think I've done anything to her, Shifeng said. He likewise found it strange that Feng Shihan was walking to him. After giving the matter some thought, he added, "The only things I remember doing are killing one of her elders and telling her to get lost. I don't think I've ever done anything else to her." Shifeng's words stupefied the long-haired man. He never thought that Shifeng would be so ruthless as to pull such stunts with the Feng family's lady. It would be strange if Feng Shihan didn't try to take Shifeng's life. However, when Feng Shihan arrived in front of Shifeng, she looked at him and asked quietly, "Can I speak with you in private?" Immediately, be it the long-haired man or the other men present, they all couldn't help staring at Shifeng with wide eyes. What was going on here? You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.